ESPN. Brought to you by Sumner One.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. We're at 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke Grimsley, Danny Mack, Matthew Rocchio, Randy Carricker. Great to have you with us on a Tuesday morning. Hope the trash is out. Our trash comes on Tuesday. Sometimes I forget about that. Yeah, if you forgot to take the trash out last night before, get the trash out there. My trash cans are out already. How are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. First of all, congratulations to St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer Randy Carricker, because we haven't had you in here since
We
then.
have not. I can't thank you guys enough. All three of you were there on Thursday. Thursday night for the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame induction at the MAC. And first of all, I was honored to go in with such an esteemed class with Kelly Chase and Steven Jackson, Ray Langford, Neil Ivey, Dave Dorr, so many others. It was great. I was honored to be interviewed by Danny Mack. I wouldn't have picked anybody else to interview me other than Dan McLaughlin. And then to have Brooke and Matthew sitting at my table was an absolute joy. So thank you guys for being there, and thanks for allowing it to happen, because I don't make the Hall of Fame if it's not for everybody that I worked with.
You nailed it. You nailed the speech. I thought your speech was, it's an interview, but it's a speech. I thought you nailed it, and you did the most important thing was immediately thanking.
I got to thank the family.
Yeah, so you didn't forget the family.
No, and you know my career as well as, or better than anybody, so you were able to navigate how I got there. So I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate the board of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame for allowing me to go in. It was pretty cool.
Well deserved, my man. Well deserved.
Yes.
Nobody else should be in there. If you're not in there, nobody else should be in there.
Nope. Clear it out. Randy Carricker, Sports Hall of Fame.
So
you are St. Louis sports, man. I mean that sincerely.
Well, one of the reasons that I was so thrilled to go in with Kelly Chase is because I put Kelly Chase on that podium as a person who just from Porcupine Plains, Saskatchewan, adopted the town and has done so much for our community with the Gateway Locomotives and all the charitable work and being the best MC in town now, and literally giving his blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Think about giving blood on the ice and crying when he got traded, and sweating, and literally gave his blood, sweat, and tears to St. Louis. So I'm so happy for Chaser. Steven Jackson was one of, and we had the interview with him a couple of weeks ago. One of my all-time favorite Rams, not just as a player, but as a person. And then Ray Langford, who, as you mentioned during the interview, he was put in a bad situation. Can you imagine if he would, if Ray would have played right before he started playing or right after he quit playing? He was in the worst era that he could have been in, right after Whitey Ball and basically right before Tony Ball.
And so much was put on his shoulders.
Yeah.
We had heard so much about him, and then he is the guy that has to follow Willie McGee.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, good luck trying to fill those shoes.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
It was a tough situation.
And he's just a classy guy and a fun guy.
There were so many great speeches. Randy, yours especially. I mean, I love the part, and you guys have talked so much about Jack Buck and how he's influenced you two in your career, and you guys are one of many, but when you told the story about how Jack Buck worked with you, and that's how you want to work with other people, and you have so many people across the country that you've helped in their career.
Well, it's amazing to think back to how many people Jack influenced with us, and our buddy Mike Kelly and Charlie Slows, who's the voice of the Washington Nationals, but even Bob Costas. I mean, Bob Costas tells the story about how when he met Jack Buck, Jack said, "I have ties older than you, kid." But Jack had a great influence on perhaps the best TV broadcaster ever. So it was great, and thank you very much. Meanwhile, last night, Monday Night Football, Taking Shots with Ricky comes back late and beats CD's TD's. So, Brooke, were you keeping an eye on the scores over the weekend?
I was not. You're talking about our fantasy football team. Just to be very clear here,
yeah,
this is what we're talking about.
Thing.
Yes.
So I have a big lead because I'm playing 6 guys on Thursday and Friday night. So I'm up like 126-30. And then Carey starts creeping back. In overtime on Sunday night, David Montgomery gets those carries to get him within 20. And I said, I'm screwed. He's got Garrett Wilson and the Niners defense going last night. I'm up, and he keeps creeping. I'm up like 126-124. in the final minute of the Niners-Jets game. Garrett Wilson catches a pass from Tyrod Taylor, catches another pass from Tyrod Taylor down to like the 4-yard line. Kerry goes ahead. Oh, jeez. But he's got the 49er defense. The Jets score a touchdown by Alan Lazard. It's not Wilson. Those points push the Niners defense back to give me a victory. Oh, by the way, can I read you something from our friends at Yahoo Sports? So Yahoo Sports is our platform. And I know that nobody wants to hear about fantasy football, but because it's my team and I'm a Hall of Famer, so I'm just...
You can do what you want.
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
So this is Tuesday, right after the draft. I get this email from Yahoo Sports, okay? By the way, the name of my team is Taking Shots with Ricky. Ricky Pearsall, 49ers.
Very timely.
Thank you, yeah. From the headlines.
Dan with the little chuckle. Randy and I were sending each other's names back and forth because I had Justin Herbert's elevator club with the people trying to get out of the elevator, and then you sent me back the one that you came up with Ricky. I was like, oh no.
So anyway, here's the paragraph I got, the first paragraph I got from Yahoo. I assume it's AI generated because it came within a minute after the draft. But it said, in a draft that could be described as a comedy of errors, Taking Shots with Ricky managed to secure the coveted grade of F, setting the stage for a legendary season of underachievement. Despite the abundance of talent available, the team selections seemed to defy logic, with the best pick being Lamar Jackson at 41, a modest success in a sea of questionable decisions. However, hope quickly faded with the worst pick, Xavier Worthy, at 56, raising eyebrows and questions about the team's draft strategy. I will have you know that Taking Shots with Ricky was the highest scoring team in the 101 ESPN League in Week 1. We are undefeated. We have that one win, and we are rolling.
How could...
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a big, big milestone in a week that had a lot of milestones in your life, Randy, to win that first week of fantasy football. Yeah. But how could Xavier Worthy be a bad pick?
I don't know. I just assume that they have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. Believe me, I was in shambles last week because I also got a terrible grade, and they tear you apart in those
They do. It's not nice.
And I was like, I try my best here.
So Brooks drafting ahead of me, and like... from rounds 5 through 8 or something, I'm texting her saying, you're going to take my guy, aren't you? And she has no idea. And then she winds up taking my guy.
I know. I kept asking her. I said, tell me who. And maybe I will, maybe I won't.
And then you did. I like your team, though. Your team's going to be fine, even though you were the lowest scoring team in the league this week.
Yeah, no, it was not. It was not a great week for me. And especially after the report yesterday that, what did they say about Derrick Henry? I sent it to you guys in the group chat where they were like,
he's not here to carry 30 times a game?
Yeah, he's not going to be here to carry 30 times a game. And I said, 29? Can I at least get 29 carries?
By the way, before we move on to baseball, and the Cardinals are back in action tonight, how about that week 1 in the NFL? Thursday night, you've got the half-inch game, right? And I would love to be able to say, I'm not a fan of the NFL, I would love to be able to say, okay, it's all rigged. But there's no way anybody athletically can be out of bounds by a half inch. You just can't.
Yeah.
Okay? So then you've got the Friday night game, comes down to the wire, 34-29, and Love gets hurt at the end. Then you've got the Sunday night game that goes to overtime. And then you have last night with Taking Shots with Ricky coming away. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, played and had his first game back. But... and so many games in between. Dak Prescott getting his contract. You guys, I know, talked about Tyreek yesterday. All of the storylines from the NFL just make it a product that you can't turn away from. You can turn away from the business, but the product is unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. The best reality TV out there because even outside of the games, there was constantly something going on. You talked about Dak Prescott, him signing that monster contract. There was just so many storylines. And even last night, we finally got to see Aaron Rodgers back, and I thought he looked fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't, anything. He stayed healthy. I guess that's my biggest takeaway is that he was able to exit the game healthy. But even with the Jets defense, when I think of Jets defense, I think about them being really stingy, and that did not happen whatsoever. I mean, their run defense was abysmal last night, and that was without Christian McCaffery on the other side. Could you imagine if he was in that game last night?
And they had Jordan Mason, though, that stepped up. I mean, he was great.
That's Kyle Shanahan's offense.
He went, 28 carries for 147?
Yeah.
I thought it was fun watching Aaron Rodgers back on the field. I was interested in watching, and the first couple of drives obviously had some issues, but then they went 70 yards, and it looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to be able to be moving around the pocket all that much. Doesn't need to, as quick releases he has and the reads that he makes. But to me, it didn't look like he missed a beat. The problem was they couldn't get on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the Niners owned 39 of the 60 minutes offensively in the game. And Aaron Rodgers it seemed like to me like he didn't play.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Right. He was never on the field.
And that's why I just said fine, because I felt like I didn't get to see enough out of him.
Yep. The Cardinals are back in action tonight. They're a game over 500, and I think the Cardinals' goal here in the last 3 weeks of September, it should be to finish a game over 2 games over 500.
And they were not able to pick up another series win against them. That's something that I felt like to me was the final nail in the coffin. Now they're not completely eliminated. So when you're talking about the players and how they're approaching this, they're going to still, of course, play every single day like they have been. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people on the outside are viewing this as they're done. They're not making the playoffs.
Does it really matter if they finished above 500? I mean, in the scheme of things, does it really matter?
In
Probably
the scheme
not.
Of things, no. But from an optics standpoint,
and that's where I'm going with this.
You don't want to have 2 losing seasons in a row, right?
Yeah, and that's where I'm at too. I think you got to finish 500 or better, and the schedule allows itself to play out. They're going to face a kid that's actually been pretty good, a right-hander that's got a .87 ERA and 10 1/3. Palante, it's another chance for him to kind of show what he can do in this starting rotation. Continue to show that he's been better and made adjustments against right-handers. You know, those are the kind of things that if I'm the club, I'm watching. I'm watching Andre Palante down the stretch. How does he look? I mean, is he making adjustments against right-handers when things go right? That something will happen tonight that probably puts him back on his heels. And does he make adjustments to where when we see him next year, you pencil him into the rotation? These are the kind of things I'd be watching if I'm the club.
And when we look at next year, I don't think that this is a year, and I know this is going to sound like somebody sending, Bill DeWitt sending me a check, which I still haven't seen, but I think what they need to do is find a way to make the players in their organization better. I really like the talent of their position players. I think that this group, despite their deficiencies offensively this year, if you give me a lineup next year where I have, let me go, Wynn, Burleson, Walker, and you have to maximize talent. Whether probably Brendan Donovan, or if you could get Gorman going somehow, and then you're going to have Arenado there. Maybe hit Contreras 5th, and then your number 6 hitter, you could go Gorman or Newt Barr, something like that. I think you've got players, you've got good hitters that just aren't hitting. And I don't know about Newt Barr. We should throw him, but Pajes not throw him out. But I mean, I can not include him in a lineup that I think is pretty good. I could have him as a bench player. My point is that what the Cardinals need to do is something that they haven't done in a long time. They need to make some pitching, and we have seen now when we look at the pitching now. When you look at the overarching group, our group right now, our St. Louis group of Gray, Kyle, who's been really good for the most part, Lynn, Matz, Michaelis, all free agents, and none of them is a win day guy. And I don't think that win day, he existed last year if you could have traded for Cease. I don't think win day guy is available at all this year in free agency or in trade. So you've got to turn somebody in your system into win day guy.
And that's why I wanted to see Michael McGreevy or Gordon Graceffo here soon. Graceffo is 25. At some point, you have to know what you have with him within your organization and what his role will be, if he will ever be a part of your star rotation. What happened to Zach Thompson? Will he be a part of the equation next year? Who knows? And then Quinn Matthews is quickly rising through the ranks of the system, but will he be ready for that next step next season? You're right. They really do need to make pitching within their organization, especially starting pitching, because with their salary and payroll, when we talk about payroll, their starting rotation is expensive. There's no way around it. And Sonny Gray, by the way, his price goes up next season.
Yeah. The thing that makes it interesting for me is that I think everything you're saying, Randy, is logical, and I feel the same way. But then my concern would be from the organizational standpoint, can I roll back some of the guys that have already gotten this lineup? It hasn't worked, right? So you sit there and say, what can we do to make this work? Can we get it to work? And that's something they're going to have to figure out, because right now you're talking about rolling back a lot of the same players that you've had the last couple of years, and it hasn't worked. Are you going to put your eggs in the basket of Nolan Gorman bouncing back, being what you think he can be? Hit 220, fine, but hit 25 home runs. Can Jordan Walker be an everyday player to where I can count on him and put him in the middle of my lineup? Was counting on him this year, and when you saw in the team in the last couple of weeks when they won some games, what was happening? Arenado's hitting, Goldschmidt's hitting, Walker's hitting. You know, these are guys that you're counting on. Can you roll it back and count on maybe that trio, or even throw in a fourth to say, like a Newbar, somebody else that you want to throw in there to say, this is what's going to get us over the hump next year?
And I think the thing to do is to go to another organization that has maximized young talent. Go find the reason that Atlanta's young players advance. Go find the reason that Cleveland's young players advance. And it doesn't have to be somebody on the major league staff. Just find out why they were able to do it. Get somebody in here that can and has maximized young talent in the past, and at least give your young players an opportunity, because we see too many young players that leave here that wind up getting better, right?
Yeah.
So they need to find that person or people. And by the way, the Cardinals minor league system is real in terms of bodies, coaching bodies is really deficient. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Cardinals have the fewest minor league people of any organization in baseball. So you need to get people that are developing at the minor league level. But since the players are already here at the major league level too, find ways to get your players better.
You have to. You have to be able to develop that talent.
Yeah. That's Brooke. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, 4 downs from NFL Week 1 here on the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Time for 4 downs from Week 1 in the National Football League. And
First down.
Have first down. No worries. We're ready. Brooke, what do you got for first down?
Well, bad news Browns. I don't know if you guys paid attention to what's going on. And I understand that the Cowboys are always going to be a tough Week 1 draw because of how well they do, especially in the regular season. But things are not going well with the Browns and Deshaun Watson, and he is just really struggling and is finding he can't really find any sort of rhythm whatsoever. And I felt like this past Sunday was a chance to make a statement about both his availability and playmaking ability, and he wasn't able to really do that, the playmaking ability. Of course, he was available, but I don't know if it was a great game for him whatsoever. He finished 24 for 45 with 169 yards, a pair of picks, and a touchdown pass to Jerry Jeudy, but it was basically in garbage time, if you want to count that. Now, another two-parter to this, if this is okay. And I think in stark contrast, you have to remember about everything that the Browns gave up to acquire Deshaun Watson. And then you look at Baker Mayfield's performance this past weekend, and it makes you wonder how the Cleveland Browns are feeling after seeing the success that Baker Mayfield is having elsewhere after everything that they gave up to acquire Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that was my first down, too. It's a disaster. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. It's a complete disaster if you're the Cleveland Browns. It's a black eye for the league, too. 13 career starts now. He's got 15 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, his passer rating of 51. He's had one fourth-quarter comeback so far. Now, it was $230 million guaranteed that he got. And people would say out there, we'll just get rid of him, just cut him. The problem is the cap hit, the dead money is $173 million.
Unbelievable.
$173 million. So he ain't going anywhere. And it's a disaster. And there's another allegation that came out yesterday against him. So, yeah, the hits just keep on coming, obviously, for Deshaun and for the Cleveland Browns. It is an unmitigated disaster in what's happened.
Dan, the other part of that, too, is Cleveland gave up 3 first-round picks to the Texans for Watson, just going back to everything that happened there. And the Texans used that to really revitalize things. Now, of course, I know that they drafted C.J. Stroud. That's a big part of what they're able to do. But you could also point back to those 3 picks were something that really helped the Texans revitalize what we're seeing now with them and what they were able to accomplish last season.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, the Texans are as impressive as anybody. They have a second-year QB in C.J. Stroud, who is awesome. The Texans smashed the Colts for 213 yards rushing on 40 attempts. Mixon was a beast. He had 159 yards. Stroud had 234 yards throwing the football. I mean, they're as fun as anybody to watch. They're going to be so much fun to watch with all the weapons that they've got.
Second down.
Oh, second down is me. Where are you, Randall?
I'm third down.
Oh, okay. I thought we're just all doing 4 downs here. Okay, I'm going with the Giants. They rushed for 74 yards. 74 yards. They let Saquon Barkley go. He had 24 rushes and 109 yards for Philly the other night. The Giants have lost 12 of 18. Daniel Jones, only 186 yards throwing the football. They're not very good. Makes it look like it's a bad decision to give him the money that they did. They invested in him. I think the Giants could be a mess this year.
They are a disaster area.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. And it's amazing that when the NFL was very funny last year with their scripted spots, okay? There's no league in America or in the world that would have their 2 New York teams be as bad as the New York franchises have been for as long as they have if things were scripted.
When the Giants came, no kidding, when the Giants came out, I thought I was watching the Canadians the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the uniforms?
Oh,
yeah.
I did not like the color of those pants.
No.
Like the uniform. It looked like the Canadians in their uniforms. But, yeah, the Giants are my second down. I mean, that's a potential disaster waiting to happen here in 24.
No doubt.
Third down.
And, Dan, I'm going to build upon that because normally I'm a Sunshine Lollipops guy, but the Giants get beat 28-6 by the Vikings, and the Panthers get beat 47-10 by the New Orleans Saints. Bryce Young and Daniel Jones combined passed for 347 yards, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. We're talking a 6th pick in the draft. We're talking a 1st pick in the draft. And I know it's early for Bryce Young. It looks really bad for him, and especially because C.J. Stroud went after him. Looks really bad for him in Carolina, and they're on another coach. Their owner seems to have his hand on the trigger finger with coaches all the time. The Carolina Panthers are playing in a bad division and should have a chance, having the draft capital that they've had. They should have a chance to be a good team. It looks like they have no chance to be a good team.
Bryce Young is getting mauled.
He is.
I mean, every team is just loading up, pinning their ears back, blitzing against him. He's now 2-15 as Carolina's starter. And it's really not his fault, in my opinion. He's kind of been the victim in this whole thing. He's been sacked 66 times in just 17 games. They've lost 500 yards in those sacks. I mean, he's got no protection. He's got no weapons, it seems like, and he's got no time to throw the football. And, this is a former number 1 overall pick, and you're trying to develop and draft when you draft a number 1 guy, you develop him. This could be one of those things that just goes so south, it could be sad.
I was expecting a lot more, but I was thinking about this yesterday. Do you think if he was in a different organization that we would actually see what we were hoping to see from Bryce Young?
I believe so. For example, if you put him with Miami and it's Bryce Young rather than Tua, maybe not the same numbers, but with those weapons that he has, he would be very, very productive. And he's protected, by the way. He's got a left tackle. He's got a center in Miami. If you put him with a franchise that has some weapons to utilize, he would. Who's the running back right now for the Carolina Panthers?
I can't remember. I was just trying to think that. Should know that off
Miles
the top
Sanders.
of my head. That's it.
And Miles Sanders had 5 carries for 22 yards.
I mean, shell shock, man.
Yeah.
The number 1 overall pick just getting killed out there.
Yeah, and Chuba. I'm going to call him Chuba.
It should be Chuba Hubbard, but it's not. And it's
totally.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. All right. Fourth down.
Do we have a 4th down? Okay, I could give you guys another one. We played it yesterday, but a lot of people having fun with probably one of the worst moments of the entire NFL weekend, which there was a lot. But one of the worst moments happened with my Tennessee Titans. They were up 17-0 against the Chicago Bears, a very, I was going to say overhyped hype team. I was going to be mean, but they won the game, so I can't say overhyped at this point because they came back. The Titans were up 17-0. Guys, I felt confident enough that weekend to tweet out, man, I can't wait for this Will Levis Callahan era because they were up 17-0. I felt like I was safe enough to do that. Sure enough, it aged very poorly, and Will Levis had one of the worst pick sixes I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I felt like it was one of those moments, I said this yesterday when we were talking about it with BK, that it felt like he was trying to kind of have like a superhero highlight reel worthy moment, but instead it turned into a highlight reel worthy moment for the other team. Just take the sack. That's the safe thing to do there. Don't try to do too much.
You are not
do the
Patrick
safe
Mahomes.
things. Exactly.
Ain't going to happen. You're not going to be able to, if you're Caleb Williams, by the way, let's just flip the script here a little bit on the other side. You're not going to be able to run like you did at USC.
Right.
He was trying to scramble and run, and he couldn't do that. Wasn't really a factor in the outcome. He was 14-29 for 93 yards, but he had no breakaways on the ground. He had 5 rushes for 15 yards. So it's you see it like with all those young QBs that made their starts over the weekend. When the lights are turned on and the main guys are out there, your number 1 defenses are out there, it's a different animal than preseason, college, anything you throw out there. It's amazing to see how much difference it really is.
It really is. That's a great point. And we get spoiled. And by the way, Mahomes sat a year, but we get spoiled by people like Stroud and Mahomes and the guys who walk in and they're good early on. And really every quarterback should sit for a year, because it is such a different game than the college game. And even a play, if ever there was a rookie mistake, and I know Levis is in his second year, but that was a rookie mistake.
Yeah.
It was just a mistake of not being poised, and it's really, really hard to play quarterback in the NFL.
And then you had Bo Nix this past weekend, too. So with your point with the rookie quarterbacks, I think that a lot of NFL teams, they want them to be the C.J. Stroud of what you saw last year, where he was able to really just take over that team. But I think we've seen time and time again that that's not the right situation. That's not the best way to set up a player for success. I think back to Blaine Gabbert, that situation that he was put into with the Jags. That was not setting him up for success. You can't put all of that on a rookie quarterback. And I understand that people say, yeah, they're making a lot of money. They should be able to handle the pressure. A lot of these guys are 22, 23 years old, not much experience. They cannot just take over that situation right out of the gate. And you have a lot of teams that really kind of, I would say, coddle them when it comes to preseason. I understand with injuries, but they probably should play some more preseason games going into the regular season.
You could give me a lot of money to be a brain surgeon, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I've never done it before. And playing quarterback in the NFL, if you've never done it before, even if you've done it at the college level, doesn't matter how much money you're making. Sam Bradford made a lot of money. Did he have a chance? No. Just leave the money out of it. Okay, unfortunately, you have to do that. Just because a guy is being paid a lot of money doesn't mean that he is or should be good. Right now, Patrick Mahomes isn't among the top 10 quarterbacks in the league after Dak got his contract.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I was thinking that the other day, and Dak gets paid right before the opening bell of the NFL season. And you were talking about just all the different things that happen in the National Football League that make it must-see TV. is with all the changing of the year, a lot of it was the same. Patrick Mahomes winning late. You had certain players that were doing the same thing that they did a year ago. Same thing happened, like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. 6 field goals.
6 field goals and great defense.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just the same thing. It's like the more it changes, the more it stays the same in some ways, too.
And some teams, and I wonder if the Bengals, they always get off to a slow start, right?
Terrible start.
Was that basically a preseason game for the Bengals, though? Was the game against New England essentially a preseason game? I think it might have been.
I think that the fans are hoping that is the case, because that was not a great game whatsoever. But I wonder, I know that when it comes to injuries and, teams want to play it safe with their starters, but do you think that more of the stars should be playing the NFL preseason? Because I think they should.
Well, I think there's a reason that that Kansas City was so successful so early, because they did play their starters in a couple of games.
I agree. You get up to the speed of the game. It's not quite the elite speed of the game, but still taking a few snaps doesn't hurt. You just pray that somebody doesn't get hurt.
Right. And for Green Bay, what difference would it have made if Jordan Love would have been hurt in the last preseason game or the first regular season game?
Right.
At some point, if you're playing football, it's going to happen. You hope it doesn't, but generally it does.
Speaking of that game, how can the NFL let the turf be that bad?
Awful.
Oh, yeah.
Every time they go overseas or play somewhere else, it's a concern for the National Football League, and they have so much invested in these players, and I understand they want to grow the game, but my God, make sure the playing surface is right.
Well, and they just put a new turf down at the Dome. And I know the old turf, it was like octagons, and there were a bunch of octagons that you pieced together to have a turf. You could fly a field into Brazil and have a representative field to play on.
J.J. Watt had an interesting tweet. He said essentially the issue with all these stadiums they go to in other countries is that the turf isn't bad, but it's a turf built for soccer players. And he's like, soccer players, it's built for players to like glide across the field, whereas football, you're digging into the field, you're grinding for space. He's like those fields, when you build them for soccer and then play football on them, get tore up so much worse. So it's like Brazil or England or Germany could have better quality turf. It just seems to be like a communication issue or something. It's like they're building it the way they think is going to work, and then it fails because it's a different sport.
If you're going to get to 16 international games a year, then fly in a field.
Yeah.
Like the NCAA basketball tournament. They have like 16 courts, right? And they just fly their court in, so they don't have any problems. They know exactly what they're going to get. And whether you've got a regional in St. Louis or Phoenix or Syracuse, New York, wherever it is, you've got the exact same kind of court because the NCAA has a bunch. If you're the NFL, you got a lot of money. Get a bunch of fields.
Can you imagine if Patrick Mahomes went down because of field turf issues?
Yeah. Jordan Love did.
Jordan Love goes down. He may play this weekend. We're not sure yet, but still, I mean, you're talking about top players that people pay and pay a lot of money to watch. I mean, you're watching the stars. You're watching the QBs. And if those guys go down, that's a real problem.
Yeah,
and you can't have that.
For the richest league in the world.
Yep.
That's Dan. That's Brooke. I'm Randy. Coming up, Derrick Goold described the Cardinals roster building as hot wiring. Is that the good way to go about it, though? That's next on 101 ESPN.
Week 1 is in the books, and man, it just feels different being able to play daily fantasy with some football instead of just all of the other sports that Underdog Fantasy has available. It's the greatest time of the year. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by competing on Underdog, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats. And here's my favorite thing about Underdog. They always keep updating your app, and my favorite thing now is that I can put in my entries for the NFL throughout the entire week. I don't have to wait until Thursday or Friday or Saturday to put in my full NFL entries. I can go through the entire NFL slate right now and start putting in my entries through the week, especially as those injury updates start changing around. I'm looking at you, Christian McCaffery. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. You can just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROCC, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first Cash Champions entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Do that anytime this week when you're going to put your NFL entry in. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC to claim your new customer special of a free pick and that deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present to say what Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern your play. Go 100 game over. Visit www.ncbgambling.org. This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Aaron Rodgers back behind a line of scrimmage last night for the Jets, and, well, it didn't go that great for him. 49ers, where they win 32-19. Rodgers goes 13 of 21 before being removed from the game. Tyrod Taylor comes in and throws a touchdown for the Jets. It was a big game for Jordan Mason, as Christian McCaffery was a surprise inactive. Jordan Mason went 28 carries for 147 yards and 1 touchdown for the 49ers. Your St. Louis Cardinals back in action after a day off yesterday, starting a 3-game series against the Reds. It'll be the righty Rhett Lauder who's 0-1 on the season with a .87 ERA through just 10 and a third innings pitched. But don't worry, he is a righty, and he faces off against Andre Palante. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
I thought that it was very interesting that they hot-wired this roster for a quick teardown. Like, I thought that was like a real interesting subplot to last year's winter. I thought it was really fascinating how they set up this roster to do that. And then that continued, right? Like you mentioned, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, these guys are on, they have options for next year. Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis, they could be moved. They have only a year remaining on their deal. Ryan Helsley, who could command a lot of attention, has 1 year, of control left. If the Cardinals really wanted to cash in, they could have traded him at the deadline, similar to what the Yankees did a few years ago with Chapman and Andrew Miller. And you look at what the quick turnaround was for the Yankees at that point in time, and they still have players from those deals back in 2016.
That's Derrick Goold of STL Today and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. This is the opening drive with Brooke, Dan, and Randy on 101 ESPN. Hotwire is a good term. You hotwire a car to get it going for a limited amount of time. And with this roster, obviously, with the contracts that you handed out to Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and with Helsley having a year left, the Cardinals are, and with Goldschmidt's situation too, they are in a position, if they would like to rebuild quickly, to do that. I am kind of the belief, though, that with the concern about Bally and the money coming in from local TV revenue, which is the largest source of revenue that the Cardinals have, local TV revenue is number 1, ticket sales number 2. My guess would be that the Cardinals are probably headed towards youngsters coming in, rather than building a team that people would think has a chance to win the World Series on opening day of 2025. I think we're going to be looking at it as, okay, this is another transition year and a group of young players that have a chance to get better by the end of this year and the start of 26.
When I hear hot wiring, I know that means that basically it'll run for a little bit and then things break down. So that's what you want to see when it comes to, okay, if things break down, then changes need to happen. And John Mozeliak was on KMOX the other day, and he mentioned and kind of hinted towards things are changing here soon. And I'm sure you guys saw the news Friday that Gary Rocc is retiring, and I want to make it very clear that there is nothing that indicates that this was a forced retirement, but this also showcases a change in what's happening already within the organization before the offseason even starts, because Gary Rocc was with the player side of development for 12 seasons with the Cardinals. So that seems like a changing of the guard of maybe how they're going to approach player development, because that's something that we talk about all the time, is making sure you get the most out of the players that you draft in your system and develop them to their best potential.
And Dan, I want to make this point because in those 12 years, the draft has been shortened and minor league baseball has been contracted. Gary Rocc succeeded in an environment where he had a lot of players, and I think it was a better way to go for Major League Baseball to get as many athletes competing for spots on the Major League roster as possible. Now, because baseball thinks it's really smart, you have a really limited pool of players that you're bringing into pro baseball and then that you're drawing from, because you have, as opposed to maybe 100 players in your minor league system in the past, well, you do have 100 now, but you used to have 150, 175.
What it tells me then when you're saying that is that you better hit.
Yeah,
you better get your guys right, and you better be able to, once you hit them, be able to develop them. So it'll be interesting to see them get a different voice than Gary's. I've known Gary for a long time, did a great job, and wish him nothing but the best. But to get a different sense, you just look at other teams around Major League Baseball and say, okay, how are they doing it? And what's this guy doing? Or this group of individuals, and we go pluck that guy and put him in our system. And it's they know who they are out there. I mean, everybody knows the industry is small enough to where you know who's doing what, right? So now you just go out and get that guy, or you look at your pool of candidates that you're looking at, pluck the right one, pay him, bring him in. And I think you said earlier, Randy, in the open is right. They need to do something with just the entire minor leagues in terms of more coaches, I think would be helpful. Find the career minor league guys that want to be there to teach and to find the success of these young players and develop them and bring them to the major league level. We're talking about Derrick was talking about the roster and hot wiring it, and you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle to an extent with Lynn and with Gibson and some of the guys that you brought in. So this is easily going to be torn down if you want it to be. You could still have the nucleus of young players, but the big decision is going to be, not in any particular order, but Paul Goldschmidt, what you do with him. Do you want to bring him back? Kyle Gibson is somebody I think I'd have to take a hard look at bringing him back. And I understand that you have only a certain amount of spots in the rotation, but it's got to be in the conversation. Do you bring him back at a very reasonable price? And I think a key in a lot of this is Helsley. And I say it's a key because you could get a lot for him. And if you're looking to dump a contract, you just attach it to Helsley. Yeah. And you just say, if you want Ryan Helsley, you can have him. Here's what it's going to take. You're going to have to take on this deal too. Because maybe it's Michaelis, maybe it's Matz or whomever. And I know people think I'm crazy when I say this. I think Steven Matz has value. There aren't many lefties that, if healthy, could get into a rotation at that price point and be a factor for a team. And so he still has value, whether you want to believe that or not.
And here's my not concern, but what I wonder. With Kyle, who I love having on the team. We all do. We love Kyle Gibson. But with what surrounds him, the other 25 guys, is spending $10 or $12 million on Kyle Gibson a waste of money? Because is he going to be the difference between you being 500 or being great? I don't think that Kyle is. And I don't think the Cardinals are willing at this point, with the questions about revenue, to make the moves to be great. We always hear, you can go all over social media and find Bill DeWitt saying 500 is unacceptable with this team and this franchise and this market. I don't think it is for them anymore. I think that's where they're headed.
So what would you
this
like
year
to see?
And next?
Yeah. So what would you like to see change in the starting rotation?
I believe that, number one, the contracts are going to play. So it's going to be Gray, Michaelis, Matz, Eric Fetty, and Palante. I think those will be your five. And they'll save a lot of money because that's $22 million coming off the books. with Lynn and Gibson. And then you find young pitchers, and all due respect to Blake Griffin, you find somebody who can make your young pitchers better than they have been made this year.
And that goes back to player development. I'm sorry, Dan, but I thought this was a very interesting interaction because this past weekend we talked about you being a Hall of Famer, then we had the Cardinals Hall of Fame weekend, and you had Dave Duncan, where he went into the Hall of Fame. And hearing those stories of Dave Duncan, and we've heard them time and time again, but hearing him once again talk about what he was able to do in the system, I understand that there's not, I mean, Dave Duncan is 1 in a million, so that's hard to find, but I think it goes back to when we're looking at player development, getting the most out of those young players too, and growing this organization to a new direction or getting back into the right direction that we've seen in the past. I think that Dave Duncan was a huge part of that, finding somebody, as you're mentioning, Randy, that can really work with these pitchers. There was really interesting interaction last night on social media where Andy Bennis was asked by Augie Nash, who is somebody on social media who has quite a following that's a Cardinals fan. He asked, Andy, was Dunk given free reign under TLR? And Andy Bennis said, absolutely, he was the man. Tony ultimately made the final decision on pitching changes after they talked. But yes, he ran the staff. TLR had total trust in him. How do we get back to that within the organization of maybe where there's a cohesive message from the top down? Is that something that could change this offseason?
I think it's there. You got to have talent. I mean, right, Miles Michaelis has an ERA of 6.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Duncan, bring him back, and I'm not sure you can fix that. There's some issues in the talent gap that we're dealing with here as opposed to what Dunk had in previous seasons. And there were projects that Dunk had that just didn't work out. And it comes back to you got to have some talent. And that's where, looking ahead to next season, and Randy, you mentioned Michaelis being in the rotation of next year. If he's pitching like this, you can't afford to have him in there.
No, but you also can't afford to have $20 million just sitting there.
Yeah, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you could say we're going to put $20 million in the bullpen. I don't know if that works. It's going to be interesting to see how they do this down the stretch. You got 7 guys right now for 5 spots and 3 weeks to go. Do you skip Michaelis in the rotation? Possibly. You got Lance Lynn. He is going to make a start coming back. Do you want to see Steven Matz in your rotation before it's all said and done? I thought he pitched okay over the weekend in relief of Michaelis. So these are some of the things that they need to figure out here in the next 3 weeks. It's not going to be what they do in the next 3 weeks is not going to make them. It's not going to change their minds in what's going on in the offseason. I mean, they pretty much know, but to how they handle this down the stretch will be interesting for me to watch.
By the way, and for me, this is why I bring up the Braves. I think the Braves are the current model for the Cardinals. I think what the Cardinals need to do is what the Braves have done and are doing. Get your young players under contract, find the guys that you like, develop them, make sure that they're good at the major league level. The Braves have had 13 starting pitchers this year. Sale has been a revelation. But they recognized him. They said when they traded for him, we think that he can do what he's doing based on what we saw down the stretch. They had scouts that went and saw Chris Sale. Charlie Morton has 27 starts. He's been really good for them in what ostensibly will be his last year in the majors. Max Fried has started 25 games, developed by them. They made a great trade for Reynaldo Lopez. Reynaldo Lopez for them has a 2.04 earned run average in 23 starts. Spencer Schwellenbach wasn't even a guy. He wasn't even a prospect for them. But he's pitched well. He's 5-7 with a 3.78. Yet, with all the injuries and other people that have started, Bryce Elder, Grant Holmes, Ray Kerr, Darius Vines has started, Spencer Strider got hurt, Alan Winans. They're 4th in Major League Baseball in starters ERA. With all of the things that have happened to them, the Braves are still 4th because they're finding ways to get guys to pitch well.
And I would figure out a way to do that back in your organization too. Kind of what you were talking about earlier is that it goes from the top down, but especially when you're looking at within the organization, really giving them the tools to continue to develop these players, especially the pitchers.
And that's why I would go with the young guys. That's why I would. And we talked about McGreevy. McGreevy he's a back of the rotation guy. If he's not going to be what the Cardinals need, he's what they already have, right?
Yeah.
But maybe Graceffo, who's got swing and miss stuff. Maybe Tink Hence, maybe Quinn Matthews. Maybe that guy is in the organization. I think you need to find out.
You got to unlock somebody, right?
Yeah.
You got to find something. And even if maybe one of these guys winds up in your bullpen and becoming a key piece, that's another thing to look at, too. It's not just necessarily the rotation, but making sure you develop a young player that goes into your bullpen, too.
That's Dan. That's Brooke. I'm Randy. Coming up, we've got Take It or Leave It coming your way. Did you guys do Yo-Ho while I was gone?
Yes.
314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-Ho. Take It or Leave It next on 101 ESPN.
something. We put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Brooke, Dan, Matthew, and Randy. It's the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Time for Take It or Leave It. Okay, kids. The great James Earl Jones passed away yesterday. Of course, he was in Field of Dreams. He was in Bench Warmers. He was in The Sandlot, too. He was in a lot of sports movies. Take it or leave it, James Earl Jones had the greatest voice ever.
Oh, take it. Definitely up there.
Yeah. Morgan Freeman has a great voice.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Jinx. I was going to say the exact same thing.
Is his speech in Field of Dreams the best sports speech?
Iconic. And you've seen they have it written out in front of Oracle Park in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic movie scenes ever. They will come, Ray. Yeah.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
I feel like you can just hear his voice. As soon as you say his name, I can think of his voice right then and there.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, he really was. That's a very sad loss. All right, take it or leave it. It will be Chaim Bloom that will take over John Mozeliak's job.
Oh, I like this a lot. And Brooke, I'm going to take the field. I'm going to leave it simply because I'm going to take the field. I think Chaim Bloom is a very logical choice. I know the Cardinals are intrigued by the Tampa Bay model, as everybody else should be. That's a mid-market team in Major League Baseball. But remember, Danny, when they fired Walt, Chris Antonetti and Mo seemed to be like they were neck and neck, and Mo got the job over Chris Antonetti, who's now the Pobo for Cleveland. I'm just going to say that the Cardinals look outside, and that whoever the new Pobo is, that it will not be Chaim.
Antonetti was second in command at that time, and he chose to stay with Cleveland, and he was promised the top job when Mark Shapiro moved on. And true to their word, Cleveland promoted Antonetti when the time came, and he's been calling the shots for the Guardians. And in 2016, they almost won the World Series. I mean, he's very good. So you're going with the field. If you said to me right now who would be the guy, I think Randy Flores has got to get a shot too.
Yes.
He's got to be in that conversation, and he has drafted some very good young players. And I know that we're talking about trying to get young players and get them to the big leagues. He's done a pretty good job. So I think he's going to have to be under consideration as well.
And I love the idea of having somebody who played, and especially played under Tony La Russa, who every single day would tell us they're men, not machines. I want to get back to people rather than players being treated as machines.
It was interesting. Bloom authored The Rays Way, which is a player development handbook in 2008. And his specialty was sizing up pitchers. What do they need? They need pitchers. So that's something to consider as they, try to decipher what they want to do with that position. All right, the Cardinals' remaining schedule, they've got 3 with the Reds. They've got 3 at Toronto. Then back home, they'll take on the Pirates for 4. Then they have the aforementioned Guardians for 3. So they're in the midst of 13 of 16 at home. They'll finish up on the road at 3 at Colorado, 3 at San Francisco. The St. Louis Cardinals are 1 game above 500 entering play tonight. The St. Louis Cardinals will finish this season above 500.
I'm going to take it, 82-80.
82-80, which is kind of what we thought going into the season.
Yeah, or right at 500. I think that they're still a 500 middling team.
Yeah,
but maybe just slightly above.
So I'm wearing, by the way, my Chris Duncan.
I keep hearing that.
What?
What's that beeping noise?
Oh, I'm not beeping.
Oh, I heard a beeping noise.
I'm wearing a Chris Duncan T-shirt today. We've got a Chris Duncan shadow box out in our hallway. The late, great Chris Duncan, who told a fantastic story one time about the Cardinals back in the day. You'd make 2 trips to the West Coast. And so the Cardinals had an early trip and a late trip to San Francisco. And Murph, it wasn't Murph, it was a visiting clubhouse guy in San Francisco, was famous for the great chili that they had.
Okay,
Murph, famous for the great chili. And players were convinced that chili was there all the time. So on the first trip into San Francisco, one of the Cardinal players dropped a golf ball into this big, 5-gallon vat of chili. All right? This is in April. They come back in October or in September. Maybe it was it was September. It was the schedule was set up for this, and they get the ladle and they go down to the bottom of this 5-gallon vat of chili. Searching, and yes, they do pull up the golf ball that was placed there in April. So they just added chili to the mix all year long for the players.
That's disgusting. That is so gross.
It is.
I had one guy tell me that players, the higher-end players would always send out for high-end steak, that they did not want to trust the spread. So they would go out and get, they'd send one of the clubbies out and make sure they got a high-end steak.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, they could afford to do it.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, what do we got on the text line? A couple of texts for us.
Take it or leave it. The 2020s 49ers are the new 1990s Bills.
Ooh, this is good.
It is.
I'll take that, yeah.
Where they get there, but they don't win it all.
Can't get over the top.
4 in a row, though,
it.
for Buffalo. Got to get there first. This could be just the team that's really, really good. The Bills were exceptional. They just couldn't get over the hump.
Ton of Hall of Famers. So with this being the case, take it or leave it, the current Chiefs are the early 90s Cowboys.
I will take that.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Cowboys beat the Bills twice.
Yep.
Oh, I like that. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm just disappointed that the Bengals didn't end up being like the Colts to the Chiefs, like Patriots. That's what it looks like that might happen, and it's just not happening. And that's ended up going to be one of the bigger bummers of this generation.
Bad ownership. That's
right.
When you don't sign Jamar Chase, it's an easy thing to do. It's an easy fix, and it's just a product of bad ownership.
I'm into that. Take it or leave it. Fantasy football isn't so much about you winning money; it's about the satisfaction derived from your opponent losing money.
I'm going to leave that. For me, it's all about bragging rights. I don't care about the money. I just want to win.
Well, unless there's a lot of money involved.
Yeah,
Some people do put a lot of money in this.
Yeah.
Now, we did $50 for ours, which I don't like losing $50, but I don't feel as bad about it. You're right. It's more about the competition.
Yeah. And I loved competing against Kerry Davis. I texted him last night.
Oh, he's so good at fantasy football, of course.
And I said, are you watching this? And he said, yeah, it's unbelievable. I think I said it was unbelievable. I don't think he was as happy as he was as enthralled by what was going on.
And you're just rubbing it in his face.
I was not. No, I just said yesterday, 10:06, unbelievable. You watching our fantasy football game? He says, LOL, yes, I needed that catch from Wilson and then the Jets to not score. Well, the Jets did score. Sorry, CD.
I think it's more about bragging rights.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, so especially with this group.
Oh, it gets really competitive.
It does.
Can I say that I was maybe slightly happy that Christian McCaffery wasn't available?
Slightly. Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, because obviously he was the first overall pick in our draft this year.
By the way, in our league, best fantasy football player in our league, who do you think it is? I think it's
out of
Tanner.
everybody?
I think it's Tanner.
I think CD's up there, honestly.
CD's really good, yeah.
CD's really good.
Yeah.
I'm not in it. I can't comment. You guys are all experts, so
I'm not an expert.
No, not me.
I used to be a good
should be highly competitive.
I used to be a good fantasy football player. I suck now.
Why?
Just because everybody else passed me up. I'm the Cardinals.
You got older?
Yeah. I forgot how to scout. I missed out on Emmitt Smith sitting out for 2 weeks and somebody trading him to me because they think he's going to miss the whole season. That won me a championship one time. That was
What?
Yeah, it happened. Coming up next on our Fresh Take, does it make sense for the Cardinals to continue riding the fence between miracle playoff runs and starting an offseason that'll apparently see big changes? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you're in the market to sell your home, you need to get in touch with our friend Gloria Liu from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Gloria is going to make life so easy for you because she smooths the process and knows exactly what she's doing. So when it comes time to sell your home, when you need a reliable and experienced and trusted agent, Gloria Liu is the person to call at 314-325-6888, 314-325-6888. She has solutions for you. If you want to sell your home quickly and with no hassles, well, she has this multiple cash offer program that's a great option to consider. No showings, no costly repairs, and you pick the closing date. You always get the highest cash offer to choose from in minutes with Gloria Liu. And she already has buyers for you. She's able to guarantee the sale of your home in writing because Gloria has buyers in place, thousands of ready buyers from over 20 years of an exclusive database that are looking to buy in your neighborhood and in your price range. Call Gloria Liu at 314-325-6888 or find her on the web at gloriahasthebuyers.com. As always, Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date. To learn more, visit gloriahasthebuyers.com.
The day's top stories. It's the Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
There are the mid to small market teams that you have to get the draft and player development right. To truly be successful in this league, you can't have many misses on your draft picks. And when you have draft picks, you got to be able to squeeze the most juice out of that as possible to really be successful. And so as I think about the future for the organization, obviously with Gary Rocc announcing his retirement, there's going to be some changes. And I think is great a job as Gary did. I think it's going to be a nice opportunity to welcome some change. And so I certainly look forward to the next few months and to see where we end up and what that leadership looks like. But, I definitely feel like we do have to have some changes from within because, we're not where we need to be and we need to get back there.
That's Cardinal Fobo John Mozeliak with Tom Ackerman on Sports on a Sunday on KMOX this past Sunday. And I want to start with this. He said mid to small. The Cardinals should never be a small revenue team, ever. Even though they aren't selling as many tickets this year in the past, and they're having their issues, obviously, with Bally, and they're making the same amount of money this year that they've made in the past. Bally has continued to make the payments. But even if the Cardinals have to go to a platform where they're selling their own time, they should never be a small revenue team. At worst, they should be a mid-revenue team. But what Mo said is exactly right. As a mid-revenue team, they can't miss like they have on developing talent. And I mentioned this earlier. I don't think the Cardinals have missed on bringing talent into the organization. We can see with people leaving that they're bringing good talent into the organization. It's developing and nurturing your talent so that they can win for you.
Right here in the organization. And you mentioned Gary Rocc, as we talked about earlier. He is retiring after 12 seasons of working on the player development side with the Cardinals. So this is kind of ushering in a new era, as John Mozeliak mentioned, and a new vision. Now, my big question is this the only change that we will see this offseason, or do you see some more changes coming when it comes to the player development side, maybe supplementing Randy, as you mentioned earlier, the coaching staff in the minors? Is that something else that we will see, or do you think this will be the only difference we'll see?
I believe that the savings that the Cardinals enjoy in player departures will be somewhat, not completely, but somewhat reinvested in minor league development and major league coaching.
I think that the new person in charge will bring in more. I mean, they're going to have their own idea of what to do and how to set the scale for coaches and managers and consultants and all the things that goes into this, and it's a big body of work that they have to do. But I do believe that we're going to see more people, more changes will come. I think that's going to happen. But the first one is making the ultimate change, which is who's going to run the minor league system, and then at that point, let that person put their imprint on what they want to do.
I would not be surprised, and I know a lot of people would, and I think you're one of them, Dan, that would be surprised if Mo would call it a day at the end of the season. I would not be surprised if we did see the really big change at the end of this season.
Yeah,
and he's not getting fired, right?
No.
The Cardinals will not relieve him of his duties. But you just hear about how grueling the job is. It's 24/7. I really took a lot out of that interview with Frank Cusimano earlier in the summer when he said, "The city is tiring of me." If your city is tiring of you, why do you want to keep doing the job that they're tired of?
I think the other thing, too, is that the person that they have, or at least pegged to come in, has to have a voice in what they're going to do, and maybe the main voice. So Mo can still be there if he is going to fully step aside, but that voice needs to be somebody else that says, I'm making this trade. I'm the one that signed this guy. This is my vision for the future, and Mo kind of is helping massage all the waters, because there's a lot of things you got to do in that job and trying to help that person along.
So maybe not an Alexander Steen, Doug Armstrong type relationship, but one where Mo is truly the president of baseball operations and the GM gets to do what they want to do.
A different front-facing person.
Yeah.
Somebody else who, as you mentioned, Dan, that is speaking to the public, I think will be a change that we will see. And he is staying within the organization, obviously. But I think another part of this, too, is the payroll conversation. Because we keep hearing about the payroll. Will that go down next season? I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the Cardinals have spent money. I want to make that really clear. They have spent money. You can look at where they are in all of Major League Baseball when it comes to payroll, especially with how expensive their starting rotation is. But Randy, a point you were talking about earlier is maximizing the most out of the pitchers that they're developing, and that's something that has to be addressed moving forward when you're looking at getting these Cardinals back on track. And also, too, with payroll, we've seen with many teams, just because you spend a lot of money does not guarantee success. Even the Padres, if you look at last season as opposed to this season, their payroll actually went down, but they supplemented it in a lot of the right ways.
And to lend credence to your take it or leave it, just because you don't spend a lot, Tampa Bay, doesn't mean you can't success. This will have success. This will be the first time. Tampa Bay before this year has made the playoffs 5 years in a row, and they've never had a payroll above 27th. So they do things the right way, and Chaim Bloom was there for more than a decade and knows how they go about business in Tampa.
It's going to be interesting to see how they retool. This is the first time. They didn't necessarily need to trade some of the guys that they did this year, but that's how they go about business. They think like, okay, that window's shut. Now we go to the next, look at the next wave of players that we can try to pick off other teams, draft and develop well, and they'll find themselves back in the playoffs. They've done just an amazing job of doing that, and they didn't necessarily have to do that this year.
They're pro scouting, and this is where the Cardinals need to get better, and this is why Bloom would not be a bad choice, because the pro scouting in Tampa is the best. 2 years ago, when I think they were the number 1 seed, the 1 or 2 seed, out of the 26 players on their roster, 18 had come from other organizations. We think of them, Tampa, as a draft and develop. No,
that's where I was going with this.
Yeah, they're
they
draft and
from
trade.
Other teams, yeah.
Right. And so their pro scouting is sensational, and their ability to talk other teams into getting those players that they want is sensational. There's a lot of people. And Tampa Bay did this, by the way. They came to the Cardinals and said, hey, how can we get Jose Martinez from you guys? Would you take Liberatore in a Martinez trade? That's how it started. And then Randy Rosarena was, we'll move Rosarena too. And I think somebody else came from Tampa in that deal with Liberatore. But they're very discreet in how they pursue other teams' players. It wasn't, they come into the Cardinals and say, man, we'd really like to get that Randy Arozarena from you.
Yeah, well, people keep pointing out on the text line, too, that Tampa Bay hasn't won a World Series. And I think that that's the expectation here is that you want the Cardinals to get back to that point. You don't want to just say it, but actually make the moves to really build the organization back to that point.
And there's a big difference between spending $60 million and $185 million. And the Cardinals will be capable of, like this year, of spending $185 million. The reason that Tampa Bay hasn't won is because they haven't had those impact stars like Arenado and Goldie were when the Cardinals got them, or Pujols, Holiday, Berkman, Beltran, all those guys the Cardinals have brought in over the years. Tampa Bay never had that ability. They had to trade guys like that. The Cardinals can still go get guys like that.
I think what's going to be interesting is how they approach this offseason and what type of flexibility are they given to massage this roster. I mean, do you get rid of Gibson? Do you get rid of Lynn? Do you say goodbye to Goldie? All of a sudden, that's $50 million off your payroll.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you traded Helsley with a Michaelis contract, adios to that contract. I mean, you can get creative with this.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have a chance to do that this offseason.
So at the end of the day, though, should the Cardinals, and that's the question, does it make sense for the Cardinals to keep doing what they're doing and hope, or should they take a different approach now and try to get these young players to turn into really good players that could win a World Series for them?
I think the past 2 seasons speak for themselves.
Agreed, 100%. I'm with you.
Do the fans buy into it, though?
Well,
this is a franchise that's expected to compete every year. There is not rebuild. There is maybe small retool here and there, but you're expected to compete every year.
I think the Cardinals could go into next year without Lynn, without Gibson, without Goldie, without Gallegos coming off the books, without Carpenter, without Crawford, all of those guys coming off the books. I think the Cardinals could go into next year with players in the organization and not have those guys and still figure they can finish 81 and 81.
And I think the other part is selling the fan base on it, too.
Yep.
And fans would say, yeah, I'm willing to live with the ups and downs of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman and some of the others that you might bring up that have ups and downs.
Better, right?
Yeah, because you're going to get better and you look at the seasons ahead.
I think that fans would be completely fine with it. This is just my takeaway. As long as, with what you guys are saying, if you're ushering in this new era where you're going with the youth movement, as long as you also supplement when it comes to coaching staff and your minor league system, and you lay out a clear vision of how you're going to maybe change the player development side.
And I think it also, from a fan standpoint, if Donovan and Burleson and Wynn become the faces of your franchise, those are energetic, homegrown guys. It makes a difference here to have homegrown guys, energetic, homegrown guys. If you are... Somebody said it this past weekend, or maybe it was Chris Long last week when he was in town. Hey, all St. Louis fans ask for is effort. If those guys are giving the effort that they're giving now, that's what we're looking for, is people to try hard. Mm-hmm. And if you have homegrown guys that are trying hard, I think that sells a lot in St. Louis.
I think it does, for sure.
Yep. Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, did the results of college football from around the country maybe have you reevaluate Mizzou's schedule a little bit? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey kids, our friends at Together Credit Union just launched a brand new high-yield checking account called Empower Checking, and it is awesome. With Empower Checking, you earn above-market interest on the money you keep in your day-to-day checking account at Together Credit Union. Interest is paid to you each month. It's a checking account that rewards you for balance and not activity. And when you get Empower Checking at Together Credit Union, you can sign up for their Together Credit Union City SC debit card, which is awesome. It allows you to get 10% discounts throughout City Park, whether it's concessions or whether it's merchandise, and you get express entry into City Park when you go to City SC games when you have your City SC debit card that is provided when you sign up for Empower Checking. To apply for Empower Checking, visit togethercu.org or stop by any of their 14 local St. Louis branches and work directly with one of their amazing member advocates. Get paid to save with Empower Checking. Visit togethercu.org/empower for full terms and details. Membership eligibility required. Together Credit Union, federally insured by the NCUA. All right, Oklahoma and Alabama struggled against inferior competition this week in week 2 of the college football season. And one of the reasons we're all looking at this Boston College game in another light is because of their win over Florida State, who had already lost to Georgia Tech, who just so happened to get handled by Syracuse. So how real is BC? Well, BC has a really good coach in Bill O'Brien. They've got very good offensive and defensive lines, and they can be a problem for Mizzou. One of my favorite Nick Saban lines is that not every game, but every single play takes on a life of its own. So just because Alabama struggled against South Florida for 3.5 quarters doesn't mean that Alabama's going to struggle all year long. Just because Oklahoma struggled doesn't mean they're going to struggle. It's still early in the season. And just because Mizzou has pitched shutouts in their first 2 games doesn't mean that they're going to succeed against the Boston College offense. I would hope that Eli Drinkwitz has his team ready to rock and roll physically on Saturday.
I think that he will. I think that one of the biggest things, too, is that I feel like they have been, you mentioned the 2 shutouts. Defensively, this team looks great. Now, you can argue, and we had some people talking about it yesterday, about they're playing 2 cupcake teams, but at the same time, the fact that you were able to shut them out, I think says a lot about Mizzou's defense going this year. You worried about what this team would look like with Darius Robinson there. Corey Flagg, him coming in, that was a Miami transfer. That was a huge addition that Eli Drinkwitz was able to get in via the transfer portal. Now you're going to go into Boston College, and that is a situation where definitely we know that they have the ability, that you can't underestimate them. I don't think Eli Drinkwitz and co are underestimating anybody in this situation.
Better not. By the way, one anecdote. I went and saw our friend Mike Kelly last week. He was speaking at the Tiger Club over at Llewellyn's in Webster, and he said he went to Corey Flagg and said, why would a guy from Houston that was at Miami transfer to Missouri? And Corey Flagg said, because I want to win a national championship.
Maybe he has a shot.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a shot.
Yeah.
It's interesting this weekend. I think it's great that they're taking on a team that's now top 25. I think it's just a good thing for Mizzou. They now have the 14th toughest schedule between now and the end of the season. This is according to ESPN. It was 17th before week 2, 29th at the start of the season. So this does matter to the college football playoff selection committee down the road. And that's one of the things that I take away from the early portion of the season, is that the schedule is all of a sudden changed by the fortunes of others. And I think it's a good thing that they're going to be taking on a pretty good BC team. Bill O'Brien's a good coach. He's got a lot of returning players. Obviously, they've had early season success, so not necessarily the worst thing to see a very good BC team come into Columbia and have an early season test. I think it's good.
I think that also Eli Drinkwitz and Kirby Moore have been very methodical here on how they've been using the offense. Now, one thing that I will say, and maybe I'm just being greedy here, but I'm sure that we will see it here soon, is more explosive plays. Mizzou's offense has been more methodical than explosive that we have seen here recently. They have 31 plays of 10 yards or more this season. That ranks 45th in the country. Not great, but not terrible there. The Tigers have only 6 plays of 20 yards or more, and that ranks 94th. And then they have 3 30-yard plays, which ranks 82nd. I just feel like, though, that they're being very efficient, methodical in their approach of how they're really making sure that this offense gets off to a good start this season. I'm sure we'll see some more explosive plays here soon.
And they haven't needed explosive plays because you aren't trying for those. You build up the halftime leads that you've had in both games, right? And you don't need to take your shots.
Yeah, Brady Cook, to further your point, Brooke, is 1 of 6, 20 yards or more looking downfield. So you do want to see that a little bit more, but these games have been blowouts. I wonder how much they've actually shown the full arsenal of what they have, in their playbook. Probably not a ton. That's by design, and I bet we see a little bit more of that this weekend. And they're probably going to have to do that this weekend, too.
It's funny. I was originally, and this is fan speaking, right? I was concerned about Texas A&M at Texas A&M. I was saying, okay, that's their first big test. That one worries me. Now this weekend worries me. Boston College being number, what are they, 25th? 24th in the country. Yeah. This is a scary game because they manhandled Florida State. And Florida State has players. They may not be very well coached, but they have really good, tough players. And Boston College tossed them around a little bit. They manhandled them.
Can I ask you guys another question? Did you guys watch the Colorado-Nebraska game?
I did.
Oh, yes.
Whew. Yep. First of all, it looks like Nebraska's back.
Yeah.
Secondarily, what is going on with Deion Sanders in Colorado? I mean, they are as undisciplined as any team in the country.
I remember. No idea.
Yeah, I remember Wayne Gandy, left tackle for the Rams when they came here, and the left guard was Leo Goes, and I was talking to him one time, and it wasn't. I was trying to learn nuance of offensive line. I said, "How do you guys communicate?" He said, "Well, sometimes I grunt high, sometimes I grunt low. There's chemistry." or
yeah.
So the left guard knows what you're doing. He said, we basically communicate through grunting. If you get a brand new group on the offensive line every year, they don't build that level of chemistry.
And no defensive players that are back either.
Right.
There's
hurts.
A big influx of new faces that they have there. I don't know if you guys are like me, but if Deion's on TV, I'm watching his games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Good,
Travis Hunter. Yeah,
Travis Hunter's awesome.
I hope he doesn't kill Travis Hunter. Because he's playing.
Kidding.
The first game, I think there were only 3 plays in the whole game that he wasn't on the field.
Yeah, the offensive line was not great there. But I think with college football, we talk about how exciting week 1 was for the NFL. College football has been so exciting. There's been so many losses. You mentioned Notre Dame also, them losing. I mean, there's been so many crazy stories where you had a lot of teams with high expectations. And kind of going back to your point in the question earlier in the segment about Alabama and Oklahoma, I'm looking at them differently too this season. Because if you watch both of those games, there's some problems there with both teams.
I think Alabama's going to be just fine. I still question Venables' ability, and I know they had a really good year last year at Oklahoma, but he and his staff just don't seem to have Oklahoma where they used to be under Lincoln Riley.
It would have helped to have Gabriel come back for another year.
Yep.
He goes to Oregon, and obviously that's a big loss for them. I mean, the quarterback position is the most important on the field. And I was thinking about the Notre Dame loss, how it pertains to beating Texas A&M on the road, and then how that pertains to Mizzou. Mm-hmm. Does that look like a different game on your schedule now that you're going to see 107,000 people? Mm-hmm. It's going to be crazy, but does the perception of that game change after watching what Notre Dame did, and then does it change again after what just happened at South Bend? The point being, it changes every single week.
It does, and A&M is a perfect example of a team that's going to change. They have a new coach in Mike Elko and a new staff there, and he did a really good job at Duke. I think they're going to get better and better and better. I think they'll be a much better team against Mizzou than they were against Notre Dame.
I would agree. 100%.
Yeah. I know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Brooke, while I was out last week, thank you very much for handling the fight with aplomb, apparently.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It was not stressful whatsoever.
Was your record, did you go 5-1?
No, Steve took it to me last week. That's for sure.
4-2?
Steve, what was it? I think it was 3-2, something like that.
No, I was out Monday.
Tuesday,
no, because we didn't have it on Monday. Monday was Labor Day.
Tuesday, Friday, Monday were wins.
But no Hall of Famers, right?
Almost.
Okay, and do we have a new fighter today?
We do, yes.
Okay, so we need a new fighter. If you'd like to join us for the fight, I might be rusty. Rest versus rust, you never know. So text in 314-399-9646, 314-399. Yo-ho! The fight is coming your way next on 101 ESPN.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here for Universal Windows Direct. Football season is here, and you know what that means. Fall is just around the corner with cooler temperatures on the way. It's time to make sure that your home is ready. If you've been dealing with drafty windows all summer, struggling on those crazy hot days, your AC working overtime, now is the perfect time to upgrade with Universal Windows Direct before the cold weather really starts to kick in here soon. Their windows feature super spacer technology, which makes the windows perform better, last longer, and helps keep your home more comfortable no matter the season. Plus, Universal Windows Direct backs it all up with a true lifetime warranty as long as you own the home and a 20-year warranty to the next homeowner. Schedule your free in-home estimate today, and for every 2 windows you buy, get the next 2 for free, plus 0% financing for 60 months. That's 5 years. Restrictions apply. Mention my name and get an additional $250 off your next project. So go to UWD.com. That's UWD.com. They're a proud partner of the St. Louis Cardinals. And like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
This is Rocc with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Monday Night Football last night, closing out Week 1 of the NFL season, as the 49ers walking away with a 32-19 win over the Jets. Aaron Rodgers goes 13-21 for 167 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Tyrod Taylor also got back there to throw passes for the Jets, throwing a touchdown as well. The big news for the 49ers was the surprise inactive move from Christian McCaffery. Jordan Mason took over in the backfield, went 28 for 147, 5.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown for those victorious 49ers. Your Cardinals back in action after a Monday off. They start a 3-game series hosting the Cincinnati Reds. It'll be the righty Rhett Lauder facing off against Andre Palante. Lauder on the season is 0-1 with a .87 ERA, just through 10 1/3 innings pitched. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Carricker.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rocchio here, and it is time for the fight. Randy Carricker is back. Megamind is back in the building, and facing him today, first guy out of vacation for Randy will be Jeff. Jeff, how are you feeling this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing well. Is this your first time facing Randy in the fight?
It is.
Nervous, excited, happy?
Oh, I'm ready to lose, like the Cardinals, thing.
Hey, you never know. You never know. All right, are you ready to face Randy in the fight?
Let's go.
Okay, here is question number 1, Jeff. Who is the last head coach not named Bill Belichick to coach the New England Patriots in a playoff game? Is it Rod Russ, Bill Parcells, or Pete Carroll?
Parcells.
Is that your final answer, Jeff?
Yep.
All right, question 2. Why he only tallied stats for them in the playoffs. Which franchise did Hall of Famer Jackie Smith finish his NFL career with? Was it Houston, Dallas, or Denver?
Houston.
Final answer, Jeff?
Yep. Why not?
Okay, here's question 3, Jeff. In 2010, Albert Pujols came up just short of winning his 3rd straight MVP vote, despite leading the league in home runs and RBIs. Who won the National League MVP that year? Was it
Barry Bonds.
Oh, Do you want the options?
Sure, yes, because he's probably not one. So.
Okay. Here's your options, Jeff. Is Troy Tulowitzki, Adrian Gonzalez, or Joey Votto?
Okay, Bonds must have stolen a different one from him. Let's go with options again, please.
Troy Tulowitzki, Adrian Gonzalez, or Joey Votto?
Votto.
Final answer. How many of his 5 Cy Young awards did Randy Johnson win as a Mariner? Was it 0, 1, or 2?
2.
All right. How are you feeling?
Not great.
No, not great.
No.
Are you having a good day other than that?
Yeah, not bad.
Okay. Well, here comes Randy back into the studio. He did have a bag of grapes, but they are gone, demolished. There's no more left, so you know what that means.
No grapes.
He is fired up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Randy, say hi to Jeff.
Jeff, good morning. How you doing?
Not bad. How are you, Randy?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for playing. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Ready for question number 1, Randy?
I am ready.
Who is the last head coach not named Bill Belichick to coach the New England Patriots in a playoff game?
Last coach, I don't think Pete Carroll did it there. That guy, the Irish guy from Syracuse, was terrible. Boy, would it have been? I can't imagine that we would have to go all the way back to Raymond Berry. Carroll was 9-7. I'll do the lifeline, Brooke, because I think there's somebody in between Raymond Berry and Belichick.
Okay, so your options are Rod Russ, Bill Parcells, or Pete Carroll.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about Bill Parcells. I think I'll go with Bill.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, he only tallied stats for them in the playoffs. Which franchise did Hall of Famer Jackie Smith finish his NFL career with?
How about them Cowboys? Yeah, Cowboys. Stats in the playoffs. Love Jackie, one of the all-time great. And he gets a bad rap. He was Rob Gronkowski before Rob Gronkowski was Rob Gronkowski. Unfortunately, he's remembered for a bad throw by Roger Staubach in the Super Bowl. And it was kind of it was in the third quarter. People think it was like at the end of the game and it would have been a game changer. It wasn't too. It's one of the most overblown plays in the history of sports.
Tried to make the sliding catch in the touch and have a touchdown and in the end zone. Just didn't work out.
Yep.
Great singer, that Jackie Smith.
He's one of the best people that you'll ever meet.
Nice man.
One of the nicest people that you could ever imagine. And by the way, at the age of 82, 83, looks like he could still play.
Yep.
He threw out a first pitch at a Cardinal game a couple weeks ago, man. Fire a strike. He was great.
Ready for question 3?
Ready.
All right. In 2010, Albert Pujols came up just short of winning his 3rd straight MVP vote, despite leading the league in home runs and RBIs. Who won the National League MVP that year?
2010. So this was, okay. Posey was Rookie of the Year. Giants won the World Series, but I don't, let's see. I don't think they had the MVP. I think that was too early for Andrew McCutchen to have won. Let me just run through here, see if there's anybody that stands out. So, Cards, Cubs. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to go Joey Votto. I'm going to go with Joey Votto as the 2010 Rookie of the Year. Or not Rookie, MVP. Posey was Rookie of the Year in 2010.
Question 4. How many of his 5 Cy Young awards did Randy Johnson win as a Mariner?
The big unit. He only won 5?
5.
That's it. I thought he had won more than that. Okay. I'm going to say that he won 4 with them. I'm going to go with 4. Final answer.
Okay, final answer it is. Matthew?
Sorry, Randy, making me second guess myself. And
No,
everything I woke
it
up.
just seems like
everything I woke up to
Clemens
today.
won 7, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, okay, 5. No, it's just. I wasn't suggesting that was wrong. I was just when you hear it, you think, oh, he was so good for such a long time. You think of him more in the 7 with Clemens. I think of him more in the 7 with Clemens. Just surprising. I wasn't questioning the accuracy of the answer.
It's not uncalled for to question the accuracy of the answer. We do have a winner in today's fight here. Based on the answers I had here, which again could be wrong. So, based on the answers we have here, does Jeff walk away as a first-time winner against Randy Carricker, a rusty Megamind, or does Randy walk away a winner no matter what? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
I'm sorry, Jeff. Randy Carricker took you down 2-1 in today's fight.
All good, thanks.
No problem, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show today. Let's go through the questions and answers. The last head coach not named Bill Belichick to coach the New England Patriots in a playoff game. He's also the last one not named Bill Belichick to win a playoff game, and it is Pete Carroll. In 1997, the Patriots went 10-6. They won the wild card game over the Dolphins before losing the next round. And then in 1998, when they went 9-7, they also snuck into the playoffs as a wild card team before losing in the wild card round. So 3 playoff games coached as the New England Patriots head coach.
And then he got fired.
Pete Carroll. Then he got fired, and Bill Belichick, I think he went 8-8 the next year. So a little bit of a regression. Well, he tallied only stats for them in the playoffs. Which franchise of Hall of Famer Jackie Smith finishes his NFL career with Dallas Cowboys? Honestly, Randy, you said that with a lot less venom in your voice. I thought, like, when we got talking on that subject, I was like, Randy's going to be like, yes, and I hate it, and I hated every moment that it happened.
Well, he got screwed over by Mr. Bidwell. He should have never left here.
Yeah, job here, no doubt. 2010, Albert Pujols came up just short of winning his 3rd straight MVP, despite leading the league in home runs and RBIs. That was because Joey Votto had a 1,200 OPS, and they were like, that's better than Albert Pujols' 1,100 OPS, despite the fact that he's got all the homers and RBIs over him. So Joey Votto took the 2010 MVP. Happy birthday, by the way.
Those walks are a great thing.
Yeah, great thing. To Joey Votto. And how many of his 5 Cy Young Awards did Randy Johnson win as a Mariner? Randy, you got the ratio correct, but you flipped the teams.
I flipped the teams.
4 down in Houston, and it is 1 up in Seattle with the Mariners. 1 win before he takes the switch and then goes and wins 4 in a row.
See, I wasn't listening effectively there. It was just bad listening on my part.
That'll happen, but you still got to win a 2-1 victory today. Thank you again, Jeff, for joining the show and joining the fight today.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Good to have you with us. Thanks to our friend Lisa, avid listener and active listener, and we love her. She came by yesterday. The Fenton Barn Grill held their annual golf tournament and then a get-together afterwards, and Lisa and some of her friends came by to say hi, and she provided cards for all of us, gift cards, and so we really do appreciate Lisa. All the folks that were out there at the Fenton Barn Grill. I had a chance to play with Bob Gauss, one of the great golfers in St. Louis history. He's terrific and just had a great time out there.
And Lisa with a handwritten note. It feels so rare that people send handwritten notes now or give you handwritten notes, and I always appreciate those.
Yeah, me too.
Very sweet of her. Thank you very much.
So we appreciate you, Lisa. Thank you so much. And I think that's all I had. I might have something else later in the show. We'll see.
Oh, okay. No rust for you in the fight, Randy.
A little rust, yeah.
No.
I just didn't listen because I was thinking he won. I was thinking Diamondbacks when Mariners was said. So dumb, just dumb.
You had it kind of reversed.
Yeah, I had it reversed. That's what it was.
It happens. You said Clemens, and my mind got Houston, and I said Houston for Randy Johnson. Obviously, I meant Arizona. Everybody.
Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, is a big bat more likely than an ace pitcher in a Cardinal offseason trade? That's coming your way on 101 ESPN.
Hey, Danny Mac for Stewart's American Mortgage. If you're someone who is looking to purchase a home or refi, or if you're just looking to consolidate some of that ugly credit card debt, maybe you don't know exactly what direction to go to in any of these things, let's make it easy for you. Call Stewie from Stewart's American Mortgage. He's going to help you every step of the way. If it's a new home you're looking to purchase, he'll get you to the closing table fast. Try 10 days. He'll get you the best interest rate possible, and he also has the bagel loan that can help you out too. So what is the bagel loan? If you borrow $200,000 or more, there's no underwriting fees, no appraisal fees, no title fees, no lender fees, and no closing costs. Stewie, he is your guy. He makes it easy for you. Any questions on rates, the industry, the trends, give Stewart a call. You can call him directly on his personal cell phone at 314-324-4440. 314-324-4440, or you can Google the bagel loan.
NMLS number 226715.
Our friend Derrick Goold has suggested that perhaps the Cardinals in the offseason will pursue a bat rather than an ace pitcher, which makes all the sense in the world. I would agree that if the Cardinals are going to make a trade, that it would be for a bat. And here's my reasoning. And this was in his chat yesterday. He mentioned that a big bat is more likely in an offseason trade. I don't think the Cardinals will part with what it would take to get that pitcher. And I don't even know who's going to be available. Maybe Crochet becomes available if you think that he's that big-time pitcher that you're looking for. You already have a history in dealing with Chris Getz. But I would think that if you were going to do one or the other, that the bat would be much more available to the Cardinals. Now, one thing I hope the Cardinals would do is if they do pursue a bat, make sure that you get a guy that can be a big bat at Busch Stadium. Big bat in Busch Stadium is different than a big bat in Atlanta or Philly or Cincinnati. So you need to get a thumper that can, if you're going to get a big bat, make sure the guy can hit home runs in home games.
You need power.
Yeah.
And I think that they're hoping that Nolan Gorman can be that guy. But obviously, where is he currently right now? He's still in the minors right now for the Cardinals. Will he be able to do better next season? That's the big question. Now, to the point here of bringing in a big bat via trade, what is the trade that you're making? What are you parting with?
That's a great question. That's why I wonder. Well, let me put it this way. This is why I am of the belief that the vast majority of the Cardinals' 2025 roster is already in the organization.
Pitching wins, so I'm looking at pitching. If I was going to add, now I know that there are guys under contract and they're already coming back next year, at least on paper, but pitching wins. And you know, Sonny Gray was supposed to be that guy. How'd you phrase it, Randy? He's that win for the day, or
yeah, win day guy.
Win day guy.
When he takes a mound, and I know that this is a spoiled old Cardinal fan, but when Chris Carpenter took the mound, you planned on winning that day.
Yep.
And I don't think you can plan on winning that day with Sonny Gray.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's your number one. I think he'd be very good, complimentary piece.
Absolutely he is.
But and he's not the guy that he was a year ago. So you can win with a lack of offense if you have pitching. And so I'd look at pitching. I think what you have coming back next year, I would anticipate Burleson takes another step forward. I'm going to include Mason Wynn in that conversation. I think Jordan Walker can't get any worse than what happened this year. He takes a step forward. And depending on what you do with Goldschmidt coming back, that's another bat in your lineup, whether you like it or not. He does have 20-plus home runs. Arenado, it's kind of the same stuff that I'm talking about this year. Sustaining where he's at this year. He's been okay. He's got 21 doubles, 15 home runs. I got to get pitching. Pitching is going to allow me to win. And if I can have some kind of pitching, then that gives me a chance to win despite a deficient offense at times.
And here's the thing, you guys are both right, because right now this season, what are you missing? You're missing your 1-2 punch in your starting rotation, and you're missing your 1-2 punch offensively also too, because Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt are supposed to be that guys. Obviously did not pan out that well for them this season. They have picked up some, but not what you were expecting power-wise from both of them. It's like they were both zapped power-wise this season. Now, Nolan Gorman, going back to him, I think that you need one of those younger guys to really step up, and hopefully he could, but we can go back to the strikeouts. That's been a huge problem for him, a big reason why he was sent down to the minors. So where does that power come from? Because right now the Cardinals are 24th in the league in home runs, and if you look at the teams below them, it kind of makes sense. It's teams like the Mariners, it's teams like the Rays, it's the Nationals, and even the White Sox. So you need that power to come from somewhere in this organization, going back to your point, Randy, about the bat, but you do need that 1-2 punch with a starting rotation, because the teams that succeed and make it to the playoffs and actually make it further in the playoffs, they have that in their starting rotation.
And let me make it clear, I would prefer to get that starting pitcher. I just don't think the Cardinals have the wherewithal, either from a personnel standpoint to go trade for one, or from a financial standpoint to go get one. You know who the best free agent pitcher is going to be this offseason? It's going to be Jack Flaherty.
Could be. And he's dealing with the Dodgers.
He's fourth in Major League Baseball in ERA this year.
Yep.
He's had a really good year. He's not coming back. When you look at the guys, I can't imagine, for example, with what it was rumored to have been wanted by the Tigers for Derrick Goold. I don't think the Cardinals would give that up.
No.
You're talking about giving up 3 Major League ready guys plus an arm. I don't think the Cardinals will go there. So I just think it's more likely that and I don't think they'll do either, but I think it's more likely that they pursue the bat. I think the Cardinals believe that Gorman and Walker can be their power hitters.
And if you were going to go out and get a pitcher, you're going to have to give up one of those. One of those guys is going to be in a conversation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So then you're back to square one and saying, well, who's going to provide the offense?
Yeah.
So you can rob Peter to pay Paul.
So what we're coming back to is the Cardinals have to make their guys better.
Absolutely. That's what it comes down to. I mean, Gorman and Walker have to be Gorman and Walker.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then you're going to be back in this spot next year.
And I don't know if the Nolan Arenado regression is a downhill descent now, or if there's something else there that would allow him to rebound and be a reasonable facsimile, facts that precludes you guys, Matthew and Brooke, but a reasonable facts of himself from back in the day.
I don't know either. And after watching Goldie this year, Goldie turns 37 today.
Happy birthday, Goldie.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Is it age, or is it just one of those outliers of a year? A little bit of both. It's been a year and a half. I'll say this too, by the way, and this is on the separate side of this. If you don't bring Goldie back, you are going to see a severe decline in defense.
Mm-hmm. You are.
That's a great point.
He makes a lot of players better, and that's something that you pay for too. Whether you want to believe, it doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but man, is he good defensively?
He's great.
He's elite, and so you're going to miss that if you don't bring him back next year. It's something to think. And when you start looking at the sides of why you bring him back or don't bring him back, but his defense is a big check mark for me.
My philosophy during the Cardinal offseason, right now I'll say this on September 10th, and until I am given evidence otherwise, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow the money. Because I think that they're concerned about Bally. I think they're concerned about the attendance. And I think the payroll is going down. And until they show me otherwise, that's the way I'm going to believe they're approaching things.
I think you could sell it, though, if you didn't go out and do a lot and saying we're giving our young kids a chance to play.
That's what it's all about.
And I think fans would be okay with that.
And spend whatever... Maybe you spend $1 million on coaches to get more established coaches that have done it at the major league level, taking nothing away from the Cardinal coaches that are here right now. But what has Blake Lively done at the major league level? If Turner Ward, hey, let's get gooder. But let's be honest, too. If Turner Ward was that great, wouldn't he still be the Dodgers hitting coach?
But he has a very close relationship with Paul Goldschmidt.
That helps, but that's not how you win.
Yeah.
I love, as people, Stubby Clapp, Pop Warner, princes, top shelf guys. But they've never won at the major league level. And I want people with winning experience. That was one of the huge things about Tony coming in and bringing his coaching staff in 1996. That's one of the reasons they won in 96 is because they brought in winners right away. And I just want to have people that know how to do it. And this is not an affront to the teaching abilities of the coaches that are on hand. I just think there's a lot to be said for the experience of winning. Why did Texas win last year? Because they brought in experienced winners.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the Blues. Obviously, two very different sports that I'm comparing here, but they added Claude Julien to their staff.
Stanley Cup Finals coach.
He has the pedigree. He has the experience to really help their staff that has a lot of young coaches on there, including Drew Bannister.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not being critical of the guys that are on hand. I'm just saying that it helps to have people that have been there and done that.
Yeah, and in the minor leagues.
No doubt. Well, that's the biggest thing.
That to me is the biggest thing. I mean, I'm with you. It's great to have experience on the major league level. It helps. All the experience you can find, bring it in. But in the minor league level, where guys are dedicated to being minor league coaches and saying, I'm here, I've been there, I've done it, but I'm dedicating now the second part of my career, my baseball career, to helping young players get to the big leagues. That's a big thing in the minor leagues, and I think that's something that they need to refocus on.
Let me make one other quick point here, and this is just to the point that I'm trying to make here. Joe Torre started his managerial career in 1977 with the Mets. He was a player manager. Then he went to the Braves. He won a division. He took 5 years off after Atlanta. He came here. He did way better with the talent than anybody else would have, and had experienced guys. He goes to New York. Who's he hire as his bench coach? Don Zimmer, who'd been around forever. Joe Torre had been managing in Major League Baseball for almost 2 decades, and he brings in like the oldest, most sage guy you could ever have next to him to be. And by the way, Mel Stottlemyre too as his pitching coach. You bring in old guys that have done it before.
And the thing is that makes it tricky in this day and age, in whether you like it or not, that the old school guy has to have an understanding of new school metrics.
Right. Yep. You have to do that.
It has to happen. You can't just say, I'm bringing in a bunch of older guys and this is how we're going to do it and rah-rah. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have a balance between the two.
And that's why the Atlanta staff is so good.
Well, going back to that, guess who is their hitting consultant for the Braves?
Who is it?
Chipper Jones.
That's pretty good.
I think
pretty good way to start.
Yeah.
That's Brooke. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, we've got the Rush Hour Reset on 101 ESPN. Hey, folks, homes in the St. Louis community face water heater issues like sediment buildup and odd sounds, insufficient hot water, and leaks. No matter what issue you may be experiencing, Hoffman Brothers can quickly diagnose and resolve the problem. Schedule your appointment today. Just go to HoffmanBros.com or call or text 314-664-3011. 314-664-3011. Hoffman Brothers is an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, and they do so many things that are above and beyond heating and cooling. For example, by neglecting your home drain system over time, there can be accumulated debris and cause water to drain slowly or complete blockages. Well, getting your sewer lines drained and checked regularly is important, and my friends at Hoffman Brothers offer sewer and drain services from sewer repairs and drain cleaning, full sewer line replacements, sewer lining, and more. All you need to do to schedule is go to 314-664-3011 or schedule today at HoffmanBros.com. That's HOFFMANN, HoffmanBros.com.
Recapping the biggest sports stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
The Cardinals will send Andre Palante to the mound tonight against Rhett Lauder of Cincinnati, the opener of a 3-game series at the ballpark. 6:45 pregame, or a 6:45 action over at Busch Stadium tonight. Palante and Lauder as the Cardinals head down the stretch here. The Cardinals are 6.5 behind in the wild card race. One of the shocking things that has happened for me isn't as much that the Braves have disintegrated because they've got a lot of injuries. They lost to the Reds 1-0 last night. And Atlanta's now a game behind the Mets. For the third and final wild card spot. Back in June, when they were really bad, their owner, Steve Cohen, said, hey, I don't want to break this up. I think that if we can just kind of chip away, we can get back into the playoff hunt. And lo and behold, there the Mets are.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I didn't think they had any shot to do what they're doing. And by the way, there's been a report here this morning, breaking news. Robert Murray of MLB Insider Fansided writes for fansided.com, quotes, he says, quote, sources, the St. Louis Cardinals are calling up infielder Tommy Saggese. Saggese, the Cardinals' number 4 prospect, was acquired by St. Louis from the Rangers in the Jordan Montgomery trade in 2023. Brendan Donovan's been dealing with a foot issue, so that would make some sense and give Saggese a chance. You know, we talk about it. This is the time to find out a little bit about some of your young players, so maybe this is the time to find out a little bit about Tommy Saggese, give him a run and see what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, this news is very surprising. But then, you know, with Brendan Donovan, he has been dealing with that foot injury that you were talking about, Dan. I believe it's an infection, if I'm not mistaken, that he's been dealing with. So obviously not great for Donovan. But at this point in the season, we're kind of turning the page here. Not just kind of. We are turning the page, and you want to see more of these younger players, what they have available. Thomas Saggese, obviously his bat is there. But Randy, you have pointed this out before about maybe defensively we need to see more from him.
And maybe getting him up here, the Cardinals will get major league eyes on him.
Yes.
And it's one thing to watch on video and one thing to have a guy that's playing for you every day, just so you get a better idea of what his abilities are.
So it's not only trying to find out a little bit. I mean, it's only 3 weeks, so you see what happens and you give him a taste of the big leagues and give him a little runway and see what he can do. But also what the Cardinals need to figure out after Wednesday, which is 7 guys for 5 spots in the rotation. So I kind of want to see Steven Matz in the rotation. I know that, you know, we all like what he does coming out of a bullpen, and for a reasonable price of a good team that spends money next year, maybe that's a team that would put him in the bullpen. I think from the Cardinals' perspective, you want to see what he's got with the Major League staff watching and to see what they see coming out of a in the rotation instead of coming out of the bullpen. I just want to see what he's got.
Me too. At this time of year, normally you see a team or two get really hot. There's only 2 teams in baseball that have won as many as 7 of their last 10. The Rangers are 7-3 in their last 10, and the Mets are 9-1. Everybody else is 5-5, 4-6. The Twins are 3-7, but nobody else has won more than 6 of their last 10. You really haven't seen a team in September that has put their pedal to the metal.
The Mets, I think a big thing there that we have to talk about is Francisco Lindor. He has been unbelievable and has also pushed his name into the conversation of the MVP conversation, too.
How about the American League wild card? You've got 3 teams within 3. You had Boston, Detroit, Seattle. The one that surprises me there, Detroit. I thought they were left for dead.
Yeah.
And they got hot and got back in the race, which makes this fun. In the wild card in the National League, Atlanta's a game back. Then you have the Cubs, 5. Cubs are 4 games above 500. And then the Cardinals, a game above 500, 6.5 out with Cincinnati coming in. I don't know. The Sajacy thing makes it interesting to me. I want to see some of these young guys play. I want to see Jordan Walker play every day. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing back Nolan Gorman at some point, giving him a run for a couple of weeks, see what he can do. But I understand there's a numbers game with that. But you want to see the young guys, and you want to give them that taste of Major League Baseball to see what they can do. Just give them a little experience, and that's what happens with Sajacy tonight.
Week 1 in the NFL is over after the San Francisco 49ers won the opening Monday night game of the year over the New York Jets. And now we're looking at Thursday night football. We've got the Buffalo Bills at Miami, and Josh Allen apparently will play for Buffalo against the Dolphins, who are home again. Just let up on the gas a little bit, Tyreek, as you're heading to the ballpark. Yes.
No.
Well, he was speeding, apparently, allegedly.
He was. Yeah, that was a lot that happened. It's surprising that he was even able to come out. Were you guys shocked that he actually came out and played in that game? It just all unfolded so quickly. It just reminded me of Scheffler all over again.
It totally was, yeah. It was great.
The Scheffler
Crazy.
Yeah.
My kid says to me yesterday, he goes, man, we got to wait 2 more days for a football game. Football rules the roost, man.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, he's like, we got 2 more days? And I'm like, yeah, man, we didn't even have Thursday night football back in the day.
Yeah.
We said Sunday night or Sunday games.
Yep.
And the Monday nighter, and that was it.
And this is where Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday nights are where compelling baseball should own the country at this time of year.
I think ESPN is doing a whip-around type thing with 3 hours of coverage on Wednesday night starting this Wednesday.
Oh, good.
I mean, if you're Major League Baseball, you got to have it. You got to have as much as ESPN wants to buy in, and you got to try to keep your casual fan, you got to keep them interested, one way or another, because when football starts, it's all football.
Yep.
It just is.
It's king.
That is our Rush Hour Reset here on 101 ESPN. Coming up is Deshaun Watson's acquisition by the Browns the worst transaction in sports history? It's coming your way on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you are working on an outdoor project for your house, if you're thinking about, okay, need a new fence or a deck, or maybe during the fall I want to build in a deck and make it a sunroom or a screen room, get in touch with my friends at Chesterfield Fence and Deck. They're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've been in business for 56 years here in St. Louis. And at Chesterfield Fence and Deck, they're going to do great work on your home. As a matter of fact, their commitment is to put quality and professionalism first in everything they do. They did that for me with my fence at the Carricker household, and they'll do it for you. As a matter of fact, they're going to do it with their own professionally trained installation crews and trucks and tools, and they're going to operate out of their own warehouse and large showroom in Chesterfield Valley. If you want to see the work they do and actually put your hands on it, you can head on over to their showroom in Chesterfield Valley and check it out, or you can invite them out to your house. Just give them a call at 800-300-4054. Find them on the web at chesterfieldfence.com. Set an appointment, and they'll provide you a free, no-obligation project design for whatever you want to do with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. Again, the number, 800-300-4054. The website, chesterfieldfence.com. Chesterfield Fence and Deck, the sign you have the very best. Looking very good for the Browns in their acquisition of Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans. They gave up 5 picks for Deshaun Watson. They gave him the $230 million fully guaranteed contract. And since he got to Cleveland for the 2022 season, he missed 2021 because he was suspended by Houston. He's only started 13 games in 3 years. He has not performed well, although he did get off to a 5-1 start last year, but his overall numbers are not good. And because of what they gave up, and because they basically gave the Texans a chance to rebuild their team, they've got multiple number ones and have had a great opportunity to rebuild their team. Deshaun's $230 million contract, in addition to the trade, has to go down as one of the worst transactions in the history of the league, right?
Yeah, I would argue that this is already the worst contract in sports history, not just NFL. So the worst sports contract in sports history, not just the NFL, because what you mentioned earlier, considering the fully guaranteed aspect of this in any sport is kind of crazy, but especially with this situation with Deshaun Watson. I mean, look, you mentioned how little he has been able to play. Availability matters, especially in the NFL. When you spend that much money on a quarterback, fully guaranteed, just really want to emphasize that here. And Cleveland gave up 3 first-round picks to the Texans. Now, I understand that they got C.J. Stroud, and that's another aspect of to why they have been so successful. But if you look at the Texans, the way they were able to rebuild things, you could point back to being able to get those first-round picks in that trade. And then look at Baker Mayfield, the success that he
that's
had.
another good
I don't know
point.
if you saw this past weekend. He threw for 289 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. It feels like a lot of karma is happening right now now for the Browns. If you're a Browns fan, I'm sorry, because obviously you have nothing to do with this. This is all on your ownership. They decide to go out and to give Deshaun Watson this contract. And by the way, Dan, you mentioned this earlier. Now we have the news coming out of another allegation coming out against him. And if you read the article, obviously I cannot give the full details out here on air because it's simply just disgusting, the details that are in this latest report here. But you have all this information about Deshaun Watson that is out there, and it's just really, really a bad look on the Browns that they went and did this and spent this much money on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, just on the business side, it would be bad. This would be really bad because they cut him and they'd have to have a cap hit of $173 million, so he's not going anywhere. What makes it awful are the allegations. I mean, that's what makes it bad, because you can find really bad contracts across the board or deals in all sports. Like Albert Hainsworth comes to mind.
Yes.
No one talks about that. He got $100 million and he was terrible. He's stomping on, remember that? He's stomping on players and lost
before Washington got him.
Yeah, I mean, it was
knew
awful.
What was going to happen.
And lost his job immediately. But it's the stuff that's off the field that makes this terrible. And so it's going to go down as probably the worst deal in the history of the NFL.
Now, right there, you've got the Russell Wilson deal because he played 2 years for the Broncos. They gave him a contract for $245 million. They're paying him $39 million this year to play for Pittsburgh. And the Seahawks wound up getting a haul out of that deal. Matthew's got the numbers. I know Noah Fant had a couple of catches this weekend. Weatherspoon, the corner from Illinois, was one of the picks that they got. What were the other things that they got?
Devin Weatherspoon, like you said, one of the picks. He was targeted 3 times. He allowed 0 receptions and picked up 2 pass breakups in coverage. Charles Cross, an offensive lineman for the Seahawks, had a 94.8 grade and allowed no sacks. Boye Mafe, a pass rusher, had 8 pressures and a sack. And Derrick Hall, another defensive lineman, had 4 pressures and 1 sack against the Broncos.
So that's one of the things you run into with all the money that's being spent in the NFL and with the salary cap when you're giving these quarterbacks, and this is a problem with paying the next guy rather than the best guy, is at some point, Daniel Jones, you brought up Daniel Jones, Dan, is going to be a burden on the Giants' salary cap.
Think about Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah.
So to your point, I think the trend is lock these guys up, and they're going to get, and the guys are going to hold out and wait for the next deal and try to get the most money that they can. But it's about perceived performance that you're going to get. And when you have guys that just fall, and it can happen in a hurry in the NFL, they look terrible. These deals look awful. So in the NFL, this has got to be the worst contract in the history of the game.
Here's a stat that I had yesterday about Daniel Jones, to your point about that contract not looking good for him and the Giants. So Daniel Jones has thrown 3 pick sixes and only 2 touchdowns since signing his 4-year, $160 million deal.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
He only threw for 186 yards over the weekend. They've dropped now 12 of 18, and they're going nowhere. And Saquon is with Philly. It makes it even worse. So more pressure on Daniel Jones to perform, and he has not done that. That's going to go down as a bad deal. It just is.
There have been a ton of bad NBA deals because we aren't an NBA town. We don't think about them as much. But, man, I look at Chris Bryant and his deal with the Rockies. And Bryant, as a member of the Rockies, 159 games in 3 years. He's at 250 with a 713 OPS. And they signed him after not keeping Nolan Arenado, who was iconic in Denver. So I think in baseball, Chris Bryant has to be right there among the worst. Even though they won a World Series, I guess that changes everything with the Barry Zito contract with the Giants. But there have been some really bad baseball contracts. But it's amazing that in the NFL, Deshaun Watson and that $230 million is a beacon for everybody else, a warning for everybody else.
How about Anthony Rendon?
Oh, yeah.
This has got to be the worst now. I think it'll play out worse than Bryant's because of what he has said. Doesn't really like the game. They've used like 30 different third basemen since he signed. And by the way, I went and looked at it yesterday. He is listed as day-to-day with a sore back. Anthony Rendon. This was within the last 24 hours.
Wow.
They can't get him on the field. And he said he's tried everything to get back on the field, but it's a terrible deal. It's just, and the comments don't make it any better. And that's the thing with Deshaun Watson, with what's happened off the field.
Yeah.
It just makes it even worse, way worse.
I think that's a big thing. Brooke, as a female sports fan, and you kind of alluded to this, but Does that affect how you feel about Deshaun Watson? All of the allegations and the latest allegation. Does that make you? Well, what is your take? What is your emotion about him being on fields and having that contract?
It's definitely hard as an NFL fan. As you guys know, I grew up loving and watching the Titans. To have this situation play out where you give Deshaun Watson with the amount of allegations, I really want everybody to go back and do the research, listen to the stories, see those situations, really see it's all out there. All the documents are out there. And I know that some people will say, well, a lot of it was settled out of court. What you don't understand is, and we know here in St. Louis, it's really hard, especially if you're a massage therapist where you're making maybe on average $30,000 to $50,000 a year, to go against a billion-dollar industry in the NFL. The St. Louis is one of the few cities and few entities that's able to come out on top against the NFL because they have a way of really making sure that they can win. They can play the long game because they have the money to do so. So as a female, it is disappointing to me. It's disappointing that the Browns gave him that, and this seems like karma in this situation. I also look back to the Dan Snyder situation too, and how that all played out, how much evidence was out there, and how long it took to get him out of that organization. It's shameful, and the NFL has many chances to get it right, and I hope that one day that they can, but it seems like they've been given a lot of opportunities, Randy, and they still can't get it right.
No, and him, I think people actually enjoy, and this is kind of a weird Schadenfreude kind of thing, we enjoy watching Deshaun Watson stink. It's I like watching him fail.
I watched that whole game on Sunday because I wanted to watch Tom Brady just to see how he did, and I thought he was fine, by the way.
He was fine, yeah.
He was awful. I mean, Deshaun Watson looked lost. I mean, he looked 2 or 3 steps slow in reading progressions and trying to figure out where the ball was supposed to go. He didn't leave the pocket very quickly. I mean, just as a football player, just take everything else out of the equation, which I know is you can't. But just as a football player, he looked lost. He looked terrible. And they're stuck with that for the next couple of years at a big price tag, and that's not good for the Browns, and it's one of those deals that'll go down to the original question, is it the worst in the NFL? I think it is.
And last time he played a full season, any appreciable action, was 2020. So right. 21, 22, 23, 24, he still hasn't played a full season since then.
And I feel bad for the Browns fans. As I mentioned earlier, it's not their fault that this happened. It was the Haslams, it was the ownership group that went out and decided to give this contract. Once again, the fully guaranteed portion of this is why I believe it's not only one of the worst contracts in NFL history, but also sports history, when you add in all the other stuff off the field and now even the performance on the field, too.
Yeah. Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, the 49ers won big without Christian McCaffery. How good can they be? That's next on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird report. Coming out this morning, Robert Murray, a Major League Baseball insider, is reporting that the St. Louis Cardinals are calling up infielder Thomas Saggese. As of note, Brendan Donovan has been dealing with a foot injury. The Cardinals with the day off yesterday after dropping the series to the Mariners to start their 6-game homestand. The Cardinals will host the Reds in a 3-game series starting tonight, with Andre Palante getting the starting nod, and Rhett Lauder will be on the mound for the Reds. First pitch is at 6:45.
The Redbird report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Hey, guys, I want you to have the highest energy level possible, and that comes from going to Mentality and getting your testosterone level restored to where it was when you were in your 20s and 30s, especially if you have to use your body for work. If you're out there swinging a hammer, if you're moving all day long, when you get older, your energy level drops. Those muscles are more sore, but it doesn't have to be that way. When you go to Mentality at lowtusa.com, you can find out what they do for you and how they restore your testosterone level. So get to lowtusa.com, set up an appointment at one of their clinics, either in Chesterfield or South County, and set yourself on your way to having that energy level restored that you enjoyed when you were in your 20s. And it's about walking a golf course. It's about being able to go for a run or a workout or a bike ride and being able to finish it off. It really is a difference maker for you, and they're going to work with your insurance company to make sure your out-of-pocket expenses are as low as possible. It is a difference-making situation when you use their FDA-approved testosterone supplemental treatment at Mentality. Get started now at lowtusa.com.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The 49ers with a big win over the Jets last night in Monday Night Football, 32-19. Aaron Rodgers' return from the injury last season goes 13-21 for 167 for a touchdown and an interception. The big story, though, was the surprise inactive move from Christian McCaffery, but didn't matter for the 49ers offense as Jordan Mason went 28 for 147 with a touchdown. The Cardinals back in action today, starting a 3-game series against the Reds. Right-handed pitcher Rhett Lauder faces off against Palante for the Cardinals. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
When a team as prolific as the 49ers have been over the last half dozen years gets to this point, gets to year 5 or 6, and they were in the Super Bowl in 19, so we're in 24 now. So they've been good for 5 years. Normally, when you are that good for that long, you are going to be picked over pretty bad in free agency. Other teams are going to take your good players, and most importantly, they're going to take away your support players, or guys are going to get hurt. And what the 49ers have done in their ability to keep their players and supplement the players that depart has been pretty impressive. When you think about the running back Elijah Mitchell, he was really well. Let's start with Raheem Mostert. Okay, so Mostert has a great year for them 4 years ago, and he becomes a free agent, so they wind up with Elijah Mitchell. He winds up being good, but he gets hurt all the time, so they trade for Christian McCaffrey. Last night, McCaffrey is hurt, so they just plug in a kid named Jordan Mason, who goes 28 carries for 147 yards. There probably isn't a team right now in the NFL that does a better job of having a program than the 49ers. They always seem to have somebody ready to step in. The other thing that they do exceptionally well is they understand how games are won and lost. It's having a passer, having targets for the passer, And by the way, they're targets with Ayuk and Samuel and George Kittle, and when he's healthy, McCaffery. They're as good as anybody's. And they protect the passer with the best left tackle in the game. And then they can get after the opposing passer with Nick Bosa. And then they defend the pass with good corners. They are exceptional, John Lynch and company, at building a team. And they might be as good now as they were when they went to their first Super Bowl in this iteration of the Niners.
Well, and I think also you go back to Kyle Shanahan and his offensive design and what he's able to do. You mentioned plugging in Mason. I think that this is sometimes why people like to take away credit from Brock Purdy because, I mean, it's his plug-and-play style of offense, it seems to work for just about every single player, and it's his personnel, it's the talent they have there, of course, too. And the Jets are really lucky that Christian McCaffrey was not in that game because defensively, not a great game for the Jets, so we do have to take that into account. But Kyle Shanahan and the way that he's able to scheme things up offensively, it's the pre-snap motion. If you're just watching that, the pre-snap motion, it's so deceitful in a lot of different ways. I mean, that's why I think that he deserves a lot of credit for what he's able to do offensively. Bad game for the Jets defensively. I mean, I don't know what else you can say about that. For the Jets, when I think of them, I usually think of stingy defense, and that was bad. The Jets allowed 8 straight scoring drives. That's really rare for them to do, and so it was a bad game for the Jets defensively. Offensively, though, I think it just really showcases Kyle Shanahan, what he's able to do.
So the Jets defense, I'm with you, Brooke, they just seemed off. I mean, no pass rush, bad tackling. Now, I wonder if it was a byproduct of that they were on the field for 39 of the 60 minutes. And that goes back to what you're talking about, Randy. I mean, offensively, what they're able to do. I look at 3 things that the Niners have done. Trent Williams, so you have a future Hall of Famer left tackle, probably a future Hall of Famer, Nick Bosa, pass rusher, and then a very good quarterback. And you can say, well, he's a game manager. He does this, he does that, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. He wins. And we're talking about Brock Purdy. And when you have that combination and then sprinkle in the skilled positions that they have, Christian McCaffrey is awesome. Ayuk can be incredible, although he missed a touchdown catch. Found it interesting. You sit there when you miss those, you say, well, is he rusty? Did he miss training camp? All that kind of stuff. Didn't matter. You have Ayuk. You've got some of the other skill guys that they have that they sprinkle in. They're tough. They're going to be really good. And there's no reason to think that they won't win this year and have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
The other thing they do is they understand sometimes old players are still good, like going out and getting Leonard Floyd to rush the passer, getting a guy like Campbell, Devondre Campbell, when Nick Greenlaw went down. They're really good at finding guys 30, 31, 32, 33 that are still productive, that just want to be there with a chance to win for them for a year.
And I think then when I was watching the game last night, I thought this might be the window that's closing. Trent Williams is 36. You're going to have to pay Purdy, coming up this year. And so is the window closing to where, how are you going to keep all these guys? That's the one thing I thought about. But if you can sprinkle in veterans that want a chance to win, go to a great place to play, San Francisco might be your place.
Did you guys see also this morning about what everybody's talking about with Jordan Mason and what he said in his post-game comments? Because he mentioned that he found out he was starting on Friday. So I don't know if that was like a little slip there, because we know yesterday when that news came out, I felt for a lot of fantasy owners, except for the one in our current 101 ESPN league.
Who has that?
It might be BK.
Okay.
Yeah. Just kidding. I feel for him in that situation. I'm just teasing him if he's listening, which he probably is. I don't want to hear about it later, but I thought that was really interesting that everybody's focusing on those comments. When do you think that they knew? They had to have some inkling that it was happening, because I believe that he was on the injury report as maybe playing, maybe not playing. But when that situation happens, I know that betting-wise, there's a lot that happens there too, fantasy-wise.
Line jumped by 2.
Really?
Yeah. So it was major.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you want to have honesty with your injury reports, because the betting line is so big. And we talked about it last week. The betting on a professional football this year is going to be $35 billion. $35 billion. So that's why you have these lines, and you hope that there's going to be some kind of honesty that comes out when you put the lines out.
Yeah. I don't see another team in the NFC right now that I would put in the class of San Francisco. To me, they're prohibitive in the NFC to make the Super Bowl.
Who else would you have in the NFC? You got Detroit.
It's Detroit and Dallas.
Yeah.
And depending on what happens with Jordan Love, I will put Green Bay in that mix too.
I had Green Bay going to my Super Bowl.
Really?
If Love is healthy for the the preponderance of the season, I can see it.
He's got to stay healthy.
Right. But I don't think the Rams are in that class. The Cardinals, unfortunately, certainly aren't. Not Seattle. Nobody from the NFC South. If you look at the East, not Washington, not the Giants. I really don't think even Philadelphia's in their class.
I think that just a tier below, though, if you're talking about 1A being the 49ers, and then maybe 2 or 1B would be the Lions. I'm impressed by the Lions this season already.
I think the Lions. The problem is what we saw last year from the Lions in the playoffs with San Francisco.
How about what they did in OT? Just get behind center and let's go. Yeah. Just run the football, play smash mouth. It was old school football watching in OT.
I thought it sucked.
Why?
Because of David Montgomery.
Yeah, but they were going against your favorite team.
That was important, and it tugged at my heartstrings, Daniel.
Puka Nacua is going to be out now 4 weeks. Something to consider here, Randall.
You love it, don't you?
Oh, it's wonderful. Good. No, it's if I would have lost because of David Montgomery's success, and the Rams would have lost, I would have been okay with it.
Yeah. I think you're still, whoever plays the Rams, that's all you care about.
Well, in my fantasy team.
I'm saying even above your fantasy team.
My favorite NFL team is the team that plays the Rams.
Period.
There we go. And the Lions, they were able to beat the Rams, so I know that you're very excited. Also, Jameson Williams, you had to be excited about him and his performance.
Talk
explosive.
About a St. Louis flavor in that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because Isaiah Williams plays for the Lions, Jack Fox, the punter, Laporta, and then you had Kyron Williams and Cody Schrader sitting there as an inactive. I think there was one other Ram player from the St. Louis area, too. It was like 7 St. Louis guys in that game the other night.
And then Jameson Williams, what he was able to do.
Oh, Jameson rocked.
He really did.
He's
his
a pretty
speed,
explosive guy.
White was gassed just trying to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that with that 50-yarder? Yeah.
Pretty rough. That's Brooke. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, we're going to head down the stretch with Rocc and Roll here on 101 ESPN. We had a great time at the Fenton Bar and Grill golf tournament yesterday, and then afterwards headed on over to the Fenton Bar and Grill, enjoyed some of their spectacular trash swings. Man, they're great. They're the best trash swings you will ever have. I had them with ranch, and a lot of people enjoyed the signature golden sauce over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Then they made some wonderful pork steaks. Our friend Lisa was there. Our friend Chris Muir from Golf Discount stopped by, and all of the servers, the feisty redhead Kelly was there. Alicia stopped by. By the way, there is a belief out there that Brooke is not a redhead. Some people are disputing this. So it's Chris Muir from Golf Discount. So here's the thing you need to do. Stop by Fenton Bar and Grill for lunch or happy hour or dinner today. Enjoy their spectacular food. They have wonderful service and just a great ambiance. It's called The Dive with the Vibe, and it really is. All sports fans there. You're going to be watching sports on TV. You can stop by and watch the Cardinal game tonight, all of the football games, and don't forget college football Saturdays, which are pretty awesome. You'll love the Fenton Bar and Grill. You'll love the food. You love the people. You love the time. And when you stop by, tell them Randy sent you to the Fenton Bar and Grill on Rudder Road in Fenton. Learn more at FentonBarandGrill.com.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and I want to tell you why I love the Missouri Athletic Club. It's because I love going to all their different events that they have. I was over at the Missouri Athletic Club downtown for Randy Carricker getting inducted into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and it was just so much fun. They always have great events over there, and then I love going to work out at the West location and having lunch. That buffalo chicken wrap is delicious. They always provide such a great experience, and that's why I love my MAC.
I want to rock.
During my mother-in-law's birthday dinner, our fantasy football draft was going on, and so I tried to be discreet and keep it underneath the table. But then somebody would ask me a question, I'd be like, "What? Yeah, sure, sure." Randy, I also revealed last week during your St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame induction, we were listening to you, Dan. You were doing a fantastic job, but Randy Carricker did have his phone out watching the game during the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame induction, which I think that's very Randy-esque of you.
You're watching the football game?
Well, my daughter is a huge Baltimore Ravens fan. Mm-hmm. And so it was a given that we were going to have a phone watching that game.
Oh, they had multiple phones going.
Yeah. Well, they had a U.S. Open phone going,
yes,
too.
Yes, they did. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it wound up being, kind of a sports night at the Sports Hall of Fame.
So was she watching in conjunction with you, or was this separate?
No, we had a phone in front of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
who else was seated at your table? Yeah, Joan was there. Patrick was Pat. I didn't see
Patrick and Alyssa were there. Yep.
All right.
And then Brooke and David and Matthew. So.
And you guys are all watching football instead of paying attention.
No, we were.
My sister Lori was there.
Yeah,
too.
we were listening to you, Dan.
No, we
really were.
We heard everything.
Multitasking.
Yeah,
Matthew, were you paying attention?